Alright, what's going on everyone? My name is John Komarnicki, a front-end web developer and a content creator here on YouTube. First off, I want to give a big thank you to Brad for once again giving me the opportunity to create a project for you guys here on his channel. Now, if you enjoy this video and my style of content, I believe Brad will have a link down below in the description. Feel free to follow me for more videos like you're going to be seeing here today. So let's go ahead and get into the project. Now what we're going to be building is a full CRUD application called Active Tracker, and Active Tracker is simply going to be able to keep track of all your activity. Now to build this application, we're going to be using Vue 3 and the Composition API on the front end. Now on the back end, we're going to be using a service called Supabase to hold all of our exercise or activity data. And we're also going to be using Supabase to implement authentication so that we can restrict only authenticated users from creating workouts and also editing them. Now for the styling, we're going to be using Tailwind CSS. So before we go ahead and get into building this project, let's first go ahead and do a quick little demo. Now, when you first come to this application, you're going to see here that we're going to display all the workouts that we have in our database. Now, as of right now, we only have the one. So if I click on this little card for exercise number 1, which is the name of the workout, you can see it's going to take us to a much more detailed view of that workout. Okay, so you can see we have the little icon here. So we're going to have two different types of workouts. We're going to have strength training and also cardio. So for strength training, we're going to display this little icon with weights. We're going to have the strength tag right here, and then we have the exercise name or the workout name, and then we have the exercises associated with that workout. Okay. Now, as you can see, we can't edit this workout here, but if we were authenticated and logged in, then we could. So let's go ahead and log into our application here. So if I click on login, it's going to take us to our login screen, and we're also going to be creating a register page here. But for the sake of this demonstration, I already have an account, so I'm going to go ahead and just log in here. So let's go ahead and log in with my email here, and then our password. And once we click login, we should be redirected back to the home page here. Okay, so once we do that, you can see that we now have a few different navigation items up here in the navigation side. So we have now create, and then we have log out. So if I click on this exercise number 1 now, we should see that we have the ability to edit and now delete this workout. So if I want to go ahead and edit this right here and say we no longer want to have this exercise of back rows included here, we can go ahead and click the trash can and we can update the workout. And you can see we're going to get a little message here saying success, workout has been updated. And that's going to go ahead and disappear after a few seconds. So if I do a refresh here, you should see that we no longer have that other exercise that was associated with this workout here. Okay, now if I want to go ahead and delete this, I can also do that, and then it's going to take us back to the home page here, and you can see that when we don't have any workouts inside of our database, we're going to go ahead and say it looks empty here. We're going to show a message, and we're going to allow the user to create a workout. So let's go ahead and do that. Now if I go ahead and click on this button here, we're going to go ahead and go to this create route here. And the first thing we can do is give this workout a name. So I had a whole bunch of testing ones in here. So let's just say back workout. And actually let's do a run because you've seen what strength training looked like. So let's go ahead and do one for a run. So we'll say outdoor run here. And then we'll change this to cardio. And you can see once I do that, it comes down with this little drop down of all the information about the cardio workout that you just went ahead and did. So if I click on this drop down here, we can select run or walk. We'll do a run. And then for the distance, we'll say we went 1 mile. So let's go ahead and type in 1 here. The duration, we'll say it took us 9:22. So the pace would be 9:22. Or you can go ahead and change this however you want. Now say we did a cooldown and we did a walk, so let's add a walk in here and we'll say 0.5 for half a mile, and we'll say that took us 10 minutes here. Let's see. Okay, and then the pace will be 20 minutes, because usually what a pace means is how long it took you to do 1 mile. So if we had half a mile here, the pace would be 20. Okay, So if I click on record workout here, you should see that we're going to get a success message saying that the workout has been created, and then it removes all the information here. So if we go back to our home screen, you should now see we're going to have this card for an outdoor run, and we have a different icon here of somebody running, and then we have our cardio tag, and then we have the title here. So if I click on this, it's going to be very similar to our strength training versus the different data here and the different icon and then the cardio tag. And once again, I can edit this, I can add a different one, I can remove it, and so forth. Okay, so that is what we're going to be building here. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, to make things a little bit easier and save some time, what I've done is I've created a starting files branch here on the repository for this project. So to get to this, what you want to do is the link is going to take you to this page right here. You're going to want to go ahead and click on this drop down here, which currently says master, and we want to go into the starting files branch here. Now, once you're here, we can go over to this code button right here, and we can click on download the zip. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and open this up in our Finder here. So it's going to be a zip, so we need to go ahead and extract that. And then we're going to open this up inside of VS Code or whatever text editor you choose. Okay, so let's go ahead and expand this here. So let's do this. Now, the first thing that we want to do is we want to install all the dependencies. So let's go up to the top here. We're going to go ahead and select on terminal. We'll go do new terminal here. And then we want to run the command npm install, and that's going to go ahead and install all the dependencies that we're going to need for our active tracker project. So with that complete, the next thing that we can do is spin up our local development server to go ahead and preview all the changes that we're going to make here within our project and this video. So to do this, you want to run the command inside of our terminal npm run surf here. And this is going to go ahead and start our development server on our local host, and it's going to go ahead and build here, as you can see. And then once it is finished building, we should be outputted some URLs to go ahead and open this up inside of our browser here. So as you can see, our app is running now on our local host port 8082. So if I go ahead and open this, you're going to see a blank white page because I went ahead and removed all of the components and starting files from the Vue CLI template when you go ahead and create a new Vue project. Now here in VS Code, let's do a brief overview of the starting files that we have for our project. So let's begin with our dependencies. So to do this, we're going to open up our package.json here, and we'll start from the bottom and work our way to the top. So we're not actually using too many dependencies. We are going to be keeping it light. So we have Vue 3. We're going to be using a plugin called UID, which is what we're going to use to generate a unique ID and associate it to our exercises. We're going to be using Tailwinds here, and then finally the last one I want to cover here is going to be Supabase, which is what we're going to be using for our backend and our database. Now next up, I want to go ahead and talk about our Tailwind configuration here because I did add a few things to this file here. So we'll start off at the top here. Now inside of this theme object, we are extending the colors. I did add a few here. You can see we have a couple classes called AT light green, AT green, and light gray. So we're also going to be using a font family from Google, and we're just going ahead and associating that here inside of our configuration. I will show you later on where I'm actually importing the Google font. We did add some flex classes here, so flex 1 and flex 2. And finally, I did make some adjustments to the container. So I did set the center to true, and then for the breakpoints large, XL, and 2XL, we set a max width of 1124 pixels. Now, let's go ahead and talk about our SRC folder here. So let's go ahead and close this. Now, within here, we have a few different folders. So we have our assets folder here, which simply is going to contain all the assets, which is going to be our images for this project. Next up, we have our components here, which for this project, we're only going to have one component, which will be our navigation component here. Now, I do want to go ahead and mention that for all of the Vue files inside of this starting repository, I did outline the Vue boilerplate here. And inside of the script, we have our setup option. So what I've done is for each file that is a Vue file, I went ahead and added some comments that is going to inform you of the things that we need to do inside of that file. So that way, if you want to go ahead and pause the video and attempt to do some of the functionality yourself, you can go ahead and have a general idea of the things that we need to do, and then after you give it a shot, you can unpause the video and I'll show you how I went ahead and solved that particular situation. Okay, so next up we have our router here, which I haven't done anything to. It's just going ahead and creating the home route. Next up we have our store, which has our index.js file, which we are going to create a store here, so this is currently empty. Next up we have a Supabase folder here, which is going to have our import of Supabase inside of this init.js file, which currently is empty, so we're going to go ahead and do that. And then finally here we have our views folder. So inside of here we have a create file, a home, login, register, and a view exercise. And if I go ahead and click on one of these, you'll see that I did the same thing for each one of these files, where I go ahead and outline what we need to do inside of that particular setup option for that view file. Okay, and then lastly here inside of wrap.view, this is where I'm importing our Google font. Alright, so next we're going to set up our Supabase project. Now Supabase is an open source Firebase alternative that currently has a few products here. So if you scroll down, you can see they have a database which is actually built on top of Postgres. They have authentication, storage, and they're working on, at the time of this video, coming out with serverless functions. Now within this video we're going to be utilizing their database and also the authentication. Now to get started, what we want to do is at the very top here inside the navigation, they have an option to start your project. So we're going to go and click on this here, and it should redirect us to log in or continue with our GitHub account. So you're going to need to have a GitHub account to continue following along with this tutorial. So let's go ahead and continue with GitHub here, and it should then redirect us to our dashboard. All right, so here we are. Now what we want to do is, once we're in our dashboard, we're going to go ahead and select on this new project button right here, and we need to choose an organization. So as you can see, I have two, but I do believe when you create your Supabase account, they already go ahead and create one for you based on your GitHub account. So if you don't see anything here, just go ahead and select on the new organization right here and just go ahead and create one, but I'm not going to go ahead and do this. So what we want to do is we're going to choose this John Komarnicki one. It doesn't really matter. And then we need to give our project a name. So all I'm going to do is simply just rename this workout tracker to workout tracker _YT. And then I already have the password in here for my previous one, so make sure you go ahead and set up a database password. Now, I will warn you, this is a very, it requires to be very strong to go ahead and set this up. So make sure you have a very strong password with, I believe, different characters, symbols, and all that kind of stuff, because it won't let you continue unless this is green. And it says the password is strong here. So then for the region, I believe it should choose the best one based on your location for you. And then that's all you need to do. So let's go ahead and click create your project here. Okay, so we've successfully created our project. Now the next thing we need to do is connect to our project. Now to do this, I have open in another tab the documentation from Supabase showing us how to do this within Vue 3. So the first thing we're going to do here, as you can see it says, is we need to install the dependency for Supabase.js. Now, since we are using the starting files repository, we already did this because I had it as a dependency within our package.json. So when you went ahead and ran the npm install, we went ahead and installed this, so we don't need to do this. Now the next thing we need to do is insert our env variables here for our Supabase URL and then our non-key. Okay, so I already actually created our env file within our project. So what we want to do is go back over to our project dashboard here, and first up we want to go ahead and copy this anon key here. So then what we want to do is go to our project, which is right here, and we're going to look for our env file, and you can see here we have the Vue app Supabase URL and the Vue app Supabase anon key. So we just copy the anon key, so we're going to go ahead and paste this in here, and we're going to save it. And then what we want to do is come back over here, and we need to grab the Supabase URL. All right, so let's go ahead and paste this in here. Now I believe whenever you change these, we need to do a restart on our local host or our server. So what I want to do is open up the terminal here, and we're going to go ahead and stop the server, and then we want to rerun it. All right, so what we want to do next is, while this is running, we can go back to Supabase here. If we go back to the documentation, we need to go ahead and create our supabase.js file, but in our case, I named this init.js. And we want to go ahead and copy and paste all this stuff in here like this. So let's go ahead and copy this and go back over to our project, and you can see this is back up. So let's go ahead and close our terminal here. and we're going to go over to our Supabase file or our folder, and we're going to go to the init.js, and we want to copy and paste this in. Now, a few things we need to change are these URLs and our non-key, because they're using Vite in their example. We're not using that, so what we need to do is come over here and we need to change it. So as you can see here, we're using Vue app. So let's go ahead and copy this, and then we'll just change it out here for Vite. Okay, and that's all we need to do. So whenever we want to reference or use Supabase, we're going to go ahead and import this init.js file into our component/file. Now back in Supabase, let's go ahead and set up our database. Now to do this, you want to go to our navigation here, and we have an option for our database. So we're going to go and click on this. And then in the top right hand corner, we have an option to go ahead and add a new one. So when we click on this, we have an option to what they call in Supabase, create a new table. So what we want to do is give our table a name. We're going to call this workouts. And then what we want to do is to protect our database from unauthenticated users, we want to enable row level security, or RLS. Okay, so what we want to do now is we need to create some columns, which is going to be our data within this database. So the first column we're going to go ahead and add here is going to be, let's see, updated underscore at, and then we want to pass in here what they call a timestamp, PTZ. And then we want to go ahead and say the default value is going to be now. Okay, so next up we want to add another column here, and this is going to be for our workout name. So we'll say workout, and we'll use camel casing here, workout name, and the type this is going to be is what they call varchar. Now the next column we want to add is going to be our workout type here, and we'll say, if I spell this right, can't type today, workout type here, and once again this is going to be the type of varchar. Now the last one that we want to add here is going to be for our exercises. So let's go ahead and add a column here, and I'm going to go ahead and paste this in. So we have exercises. Now this is not going to be the type of varchar, it's actually going to be the type of JSON. So we're going to go and select textual JSON data here. Okay, and that's going to be all the columns that we need to add. So then what we need to do here is save this, and it's going to create our new table of workouts. Okay, so let's begin to build our project. Now to start, we're going to go ahead and work on our navigation component. So let's go and open up our components folder here, and then open up our navigation.vue. So just to show you what will happen here, if I go ahead inside of our header tag and I type in an H1 and I say hello, and we save this and we go over to our browser, we don't see that H1 of hello. Now the reason is because we haven't defined where we want to use this component. Now in our case, since it's going to be a navigation component, we want to have it inside of every single view or file within our project. So what we want to do is go over to our app.vue, and we want to import this component and then use it inside of our template here. So first off, let's go ahead and actually import the component into this app.vue file. So we're going to say import navigation, we're going to say from, and we'll do / here and go into our components folder, and then we're going to be able to find navigation. Now next up, we still can't use this. We need to go ahead and define components here inside of our export default, and then we'll do a comma here, and then we'll say navigation. So now that we've done this, we can access it here inside of our templates. So let's go ahead and say navigation. And now if we go back over to our browser, we should see that H1 right here. So we are now successfully using or importing our navigation component here into our project. So let's remove this H1 as we're not going to need it, and let's begin to populate the correct markup for our navigation component here. And let's start by adding a few classes to our header tag here. Now I would like to mention, since we are starting with our styling here via Tailwind, if you find yourself a little bit lost or confused with how we're actually defining styling via Tailwind, feel free to pause the video, and I believe both myself and Brad have crash courses on Tailwind CSS that may be a little helpful at understanding exactly what we're doing. Although I do believe how Tailwind does do their naming for their classes is pretty explicit, you know, some people may still find this a little confusing. So if that's the case, feel free to pause it and maybe watch a video for myself or Brad, and then come back, as that may be a little bit helpful at understanding how we're achieving the styling here. All right. So for the classes on our header tag here, first off, what we're going to be doing is adding a background color. And we're going to be using one of our custom colors here inside of our Tailwind config, which is going to be this AT light green. Now let's go ahead and define that. So to do a background color, we're going to say BG, and then we want to define the color, which in our case is going to be AT light, and we'll do green. And then we want to go ahead and make all the text white here. So we're going to apply the class of text white. Now inside of our header here, we're going to have a nav tag, and we're going to go ahead and pass a few classes on here as well, which is first off going to be our container. We want to add some padding on the top and bottom with py, so we're going to say py-5, and then on the left and right we're going to say px, and we're going to say 4. And we want to display this nav tag as flex. We're going to say flex column, and then we're going to say gap of 4, and then we want the items to be pushed to the center here. And then what we want to do is we're going to add a breakpoint here for smaller screens such as mobile to go ahead and change this, or sorry, I should back that up. So by default, what we're doing is we're having this as a column. And then once we get to a small breakpoint, which I believe is about 500 or 600 pixels, we want to go ahead and convert this nav tag into a flex row, because currently it is a flex column. So what we'll do here is we're going to say to define a breakpoint, we can say SM, which is a small breakpoint, and then we want to say flex row like that. Okay, and that's all we need to do. Now inside of our nav tag here, we're going to have a few things. We're going to have the image on the left with the branding, which is going to be active tracker, and then on the right hand side we're going to have our actual navigation to get to different pages. So let's go ahead and open this up, and let's start off with our left hand side, which is going to be our image and our branding name, I suppose. So we'll say div, and we're going to add a few classes here. So we're going to say flex, and then we're going to do items, and we're going to say center, and then we're going to say gap x4 to create some space in between the flex items within this div. So we're going to have our image here, and for the source we're going to say .. We're going to go to assets, and we're going to say images here, and the image that we want is going to be one called, I believe, dumbbell light, which is going to be, let me open this up a little bit, this one right here. So let's go ahead and rename this. Is to go ahead and copy the name here, and then we'll shrink that back, and then we can just paste that like that. Now we do want to add a class here, which is going to be for the width, so we're going to say W14, and then below this we're going to have our H1, and we want to define a class on here of text LG for the font size. We're going to make it a little bit larger. And then we're going to have our name of our application, which is going to be active tracker. Okay, so now if we save this, we should start to see this take shape here. Now you can see we are using the default font here, and that's because we haven't defined that we want to use our custom font on our project. So what I want to do is, we actually forgot on our app.view, we want to define a few classes on this div wrapper right here. So let's go ahead and create our classes here, and we want to pass the class of min h full. We're going to go ahead and say font, and then we created our custom font here of Poppins right here. So let's go ahead and copy this, and we're going to say font dash, and we're going to say Poppins, and then we want to do a border, or a box border, let's see here, on our entire application, which is a box border, which is what we do on a reset. Okay, so now if we head back over to our application, we should see that if we maybe do a refresh, actually it's already taken the Poppins font. Okay, so that looks a little bit better. Now back over to our navigation component, let's go ahead and work on the actual navigation portion where we can go to different pages. Now to do this, we're going to go ahead and go below our div, and we're going to create a UL here, and we're going to pass some classes here of flex. We're going to do flex1, and we want to justify this content to the end. So we're going to say justify end here, and we want to pass between each flex item gap x10 for some separation between each one of our items inside of this UL. Now, what we're going to have is some router links. So we're going to go ahead and create these. So we'll say router link, and then what we want to do here is we're going to pass a class of cursor pointer, And then what we want to do is you want to pass a to attribute on here. Now, we haven't defined inside of a router any different routes. So if we do give any of these a name besides the the home view here, or let's see here, inside of our views we have home.view, which if we go to our router right now, we do have. Now if we define any of the other routes that we're going to create that we don't have inside of a router, we will go ahead and get an error. So what I'm going to do is, let's just go ahead and give the first one a name here of home, since we do have that created, and then inside of the router link here, let's pass home. Now, what we want to do is we can just duplicate this down 2 more times. So what we're going to do is we're going to have the next one be create, but what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and pass an empty name string here, and we're going to say create, and then we're going to have one more called login. Now, in between here, or actually just below this, we're going to create another item inside of this list with an actual li tag. Now, this is going to be for the ability to log out. Now, since we want to log out, we don't need to actually go to a page, so we don't need a router link here. So we're still going to go ahead and pass as a class of cursor pointer. And then what we want to do is we want to pass inside of here the text of log out, like that. And that should go ahead and do it for the markup for our navigation here. So if we go back over to our browser, we should be left with this. Now this application is going to rely a lot on whether or not a user is authenticated or they are not. Now in order to implement our authentication here, we're going to be using Supabase. Now to begin, what we need to do before we can actually authenticate a user is we need to create a page where we can go ahead and sign up a user, and also create a page where a returning user can log in. So that's where we're going to go ahead and start. Now if we navigate into our views folder here, you'll see that we already have a login file here and also a register. Now what we first need to do before we can actually generate our markup here and create our login and register pages is we need to define this route inside of our router. So let's go ahead and do that. Now inside of our router folder here, we have a file called index.js. Now what we need to do here inside of this routes array is create 2 new routes, one for our login and then one for our register. So to begin here, we first need to go ahead and import the components that we want to associate to a route. So let's go ahead and do that up top here. So we're going to say import, and we'll do login, and we'll say from, and we're going to go into our components folder here, and then we're going to find login. And then we want to do the same thing for register. So let's go ahead and just duplicate this down here, and we'll say register. All right. And I don't know if we have to tack on .view here, but we'll go ahead and do it. I think you can get away with not doing it, but we'll just go ahead and add that. All right. Now what we want to do is we'll just go ahead and duplicate this object right here for our home path or our home route. And we'll go ahead and do that twice. And then for the paths here, we're going to say login, and we're going to give it a name of login here, and the component we're going to be using is login. Now for the register path, we're going to say /register, and then we're going to say for the name, we'll do register here, and then for the component, we will do register as well. Now, what I want to do is I want to update our navigation component to go ahead and point to our router link of login to this route right here. So let's go back to our components here inside of navigation, and actually we never got rid of the home one in here, so let's change this out to login. Now if we go over to our views folder here and we go to login, and just for testing purpose and make sure everything's working, let's add an h1 here, and we'll say login, and the same thing for register. So now if we save this and we head over to our browser, we should see the following h1 tags corresponding to our login route and then our register route here. So let's go ahead and go over to our browser, and we have an error here. So it says it cannot resolve the components. Oh, okay, so you know what happened here. So we're actually in the wrong folder. Our login file is actually in our views folder. So let's go ahead and update that. So where we have components here, we want to update this to views, and that should resolve our error. Now, if we go ahead and click on the login router link here, we should be taken to our login route, and you can see here we have our h1 of login. And if I go ahead and manually go over to our register route, we should see that we're going to have the register h1 tag here. Now here in our register view, let's remove this h1 as we're not going to need it, and let's begin to generate the proper markup. Now what I want to do first is set up the data that we're going to store the user's input in, that we're going to then send over to Supabase to create their account. Now what we need to do first off is, because we want to make our data reactive within this file, we need to go ahead and import what they call a ref from, let's see here, from Vue. All right, and then we're going to use that when we create our data values here inside of our setup option. Now, the first piece of data that we want to go ahead and create is going to be our email, and we're going to set this equal to a ref, and we want the initial value to be null. Okay, then the next one we're going to create here is going to be for our password, so we'll say the same thing, and we're going to set this equal to a ref with the initial value of null. And then for our register file here, we want to go ahead and make sure that the user types in the correct password, so we want to confirm it. So what we're going to do is we're going to create another password field here, but this time we're going to call it confirm, and then we'll camel case this confirm password, and we'll set that equal to null, and let's put some semicolons here. And then the last piece of data that we're going to create for now is going to be for our error handling. So we're going to call this error message, and we'll set this equal to a ref with the initial value of null. Now, for us to use these inside of our template, which we'll be doing, we need to return them down here. So let's go ahead and return these. So we'll say email, we'll do password, and then we have confirm password, and then we have our error message. Also, one thing we need to update, which really isn't a big deal, but I want to go ahead and update this, is our name here inside of this export default. It currently says login, but it should say register. All right, and that should go ahead and do it for all the setting up here inside of our script tag. So let's go ahead and begin to populate our markup here. So let's go ahead and open up this div here, and let's add a few classes to this wrapper div. So the first one we want to go ahead and add is going to be called max w screen, and we're going to say -sm. Now, what this is going to do is restrict this div from getting no wider than the breakpoint of the small breakpoint defined within Tailwinds, which I believe is around like 500 or 600 pixels. And then we want to go ahead and center this by saying mx auto. We're going to apply some padding to the left and right with a px class and -4. And then we're going to do some padding on the top and bottom. We're going to say py, and we're going to say -10. Now inside of this div, we're going to have two different elements. We're going to have our error output, and we're also going to have our form for the registration. So let's go ahead and add some comments here to go ahead and separate this. So we're going to say error handling, and let's go ahead and create a div for this. Now we only want to show this div if there is an error present on the form. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a vif here, and we're only going to show this if this error message is true, which right now it is not, and we're going to go ahead and set that up within our register function right here. If we have an error, we're going to go ahead and output it, and then this div will appear. Now let's go ahead and add some classes here. So what we want to do is add a margin bottom of 10, a padding around all sides of 4. Now we want to go ahead and round this. So we're going to say rounded MD, and we're going to pass it a background color of what they call light gray, which is one of the colors that we have here inside of our custom colors we define in the Tailwinds configuration. Okay, so now inside of here we want to go ahead and output our error message. So we're going to do this inside of a paragraph tag, and we're going to pass it some classes, and I did that wrong, so we'll say class, and then we're going to say text, and we're going to do red, and then we're going to say 500, and then we want to just output this error message here. So we'll say error message. Now whenever we have an error, we'll go ahead and output this div right here, and then inside of that we'll have our error message. Now below this, we want to have our registration form. So let's go ahead and add a comment here, and we'll say registration. So below this, let's go ahead and create our form, and we can remove this action. We aren't going to need it. And let's add a few classes to our form. So we'll say class, and we want to add some padding around all sides. So we're going to say p-8. We're going to display this as flex, and then we want the direction to be a column, so we'll pass it the class of flex cow. And then we're going to pass it our custom color for the background of light, and we'll say gray. And then we want to go ahead and round this off, so we'll say rounded MD. And we're also going to add a box shadow here, so we'll say shadow, and we're going to say -LG. And then what we can do to keep this consistent is we can also add the shadow class to our error handling div here. So let's go ahead and paste that in there to keep things consistent. Now within our form, we're going to have our actual registration signup. So let's go ahead and add our H1, and we're going to pass it a few classes here. So we're going to make the text size 3XL. We're going to go ahead and pass it the color of one of our custom colors, which is AT. Let's see here, light. and we'll do green, and then we're going to pass that some separation to go ahead and separate it from the actual input, and we're going to say margin bottom, and we'll do -4, and then inside of here we'll say register. Now next up, what we want to do is we want to create a div to handle our input. So we'll go ahead and duplicate this down a few more times once we create the structure for it, because they're all going to be the same. So on this div, let's go ahead and pass it a class of flex, and then once again we want to have this as a column, so we'll say flex col, and then we're going to do a margin bottom of 2. Now inside of here we want to have a label, and let's see here, label, and this is going to be for email, and then we're going to pass a few classes here, which is going to be margin bottom 1. We're going to do the text, and we're going to say size will be SM for small, and then the text color here we're going to say once again is our custom color of AT light and green. And then for the label value here, we're going to say email. Now below our label, we want to have our input. So we're going to say input, and the type is going to be text. We want to go ahead and require this, so that way when we go ahead and submit on our button, we can go ahead and validate this easier without having to set up any custom validation. I'll just go ahead and make sure that this field is required. And then we're going to pass some classes here. So we want to do padding around all sides of 2. And then we want to pass it a text color, which is going to be text gray, and we're going to do the value of 500. And then we want to go ahead and remove the outline on focus. So to do that, we can go ahead and target focus here, and then say outline and set this to none. All right. And then we need to add a few more things here. So we want to go ahead and add an ID here, which is going to be email, which is going to go ahead and allow a user to click on this label and then get put into this input here. And then lastly, we need to go ahead and hook up our V model, so that way when a user types in this input, it updates this value of our email here inside of our setup options. So we can go ahead and copy this, and we'll say V model here, and we'll hook it up to our email. Now what we can do to save some time here is we're going to be using the same exact structure for all of our additional 2 inputs for our password and our confirm password. So what we can do is just go ahead and duplicate this down 2 more times. All right, so let's go ahead and close this off here, and then let's go ahead and do some separation here, and then let's update the labels accordingly. So what we want to do here is the label is going to be for our password. And then I spelled email wrong, didn't I? Let's go ahead and change that. So there we go. And then let's go ahead and change this label to password. And then we can change the ID and V model to password as well. All right. And then we also want to change the type here to password, so that this isn't visible when the user types in this input. And then for our confirm password here, we'll say confirm password, and then for the label value here we'll say confirm password, like that. And then we need to update the input here, so this will once again be password, and then the ID and V model will be confirm password here. And let's do this right. There we go. All right, so that's going to go ahead and do it for our inputs here. So next up, we want to go ahead and have a button to submit our actual registration form here. So we'll do a button here, and then we're going to pass the type of submit, and then we have a fair amount of classes we need to go ahead and add here. So let me spell this right. I'm having a really horrible time spelling here today. Now for the classes we're going to add here, we're going to start off with a margin top of 6. We're going to add some padding to the top and bottom of 2. So we'll say PY2. And then we're going to have PX for the left and right. And we're going to set that to 6. We're going to make this button rounded. So we're going to say rounded SM. And then we want to say self start to align this button to the start of the container of our form here. And then we're going to pass it text SM. And to go ahead and make this look a little cleaner, I'm going to go ahead and skip the line here. And we're going to continue adding our classes here. So we'll say the text color here is going to be text white. We're going to do a background color of our custom color of AT light, and we'll do green. And then we're going to add a transition value here. So we'll say duration, and we're going to set that to 200. And then we want to add a border here. So we're going to say border solid. And then once again, I'm going to skip a line here. We're going to say border 2. And then we're going to say border is transparent initially. because we're going to go ahead and add a border as a hover effect here. And then what we want to do is we're going to go ahead and target the hover state here. So on hover, we want to change the button here to have a border color of white. And then on hover, we want to go ahead and change the background color to be white. So we're going to say BG-white. And we're going to skip one more line here. And we're going to target another hover state here. And we're going to change the text color to text. Let's see here. We'll do text AT. And we're going to say light. And we'll do green here. So hopefully if that was all correct, our button should look how it did in the demo. We'll go ahead and check it out. And then for the value in here, we're going to change it to register. And let's go ahead and take a look and see how things are looking. Hopefully we did everything right. And if I refresh it here, we should be left with this. Now, the last thing we need to do is we want to have the ability to go from our register to our login page and vice versa. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a little router link down here saying if you already have an account, we can log in, so it'll take you to the login page. So where we're going to do that is we're going to collapse our button here, and we're going to go ahead and create a router link, and we're going to pass some classes. We'll say text SM. We're going to do a margin top of 6, and we want to align this text to the center here. Now, where we want this button to go is going to be to our login page. So we'll pass the name, and then we'll do login like that. And then what we're going to have inside of our router link here is we're going to say already have an account. And then we're going to add a span here, which is going to have the class. We'll do a class of text AT light green. And then what we want to have inside of here is just have it say login. So now if they click on this right here, it'll take them to the login page. So let's go ahead and test this out. So you can see here I already have an account login. If I do this, it's going to take us to our login page. And let's check our button here to make sure we hover over it, that it does the correct transition, which you can see right there. It changes to white and then has a green text color. Now, one thing I realized that we did mess up on is on the styling of our button here. When we hover over it, the border color is supposed to be our custom color of AT light green. So let's go ahead and fix that here. So on our button, we're going to go ahead and change the hover where it says border white to border AT dash light green here. And if we save that and take a look, that should look a lot better. And there we go. Now, that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for our register page here. So let's go ahead and work on our login. Now, these two pages are going to be identically the same, except we're going to go ahead and remove this input right here, and we're going to go ahead and update the copy in a few places. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just copy this entire file of register, and then go ahead and paste it here inside of our login. Now, what we want to do is go through this file now and go ahead and make the proper copy updates within this file. So what we'll do here is where it says register, we'll just say login. So that's the first change we need to make. And then what we want to do here is we no longer have a need for the confirm password input. So we're going to go ahead and remove that. And then we're going to go ahead and change this button from register to login. And then what we want to do here is on our router link where it says the destination of name is login, we're going to change this to register. And that needs to be a capital R here. And then we're going to go ahead and change the copy here to register. And we want to go ahead and update the copy here. And we want to say don't have an account. So we'll say don't have an account. And then we're going to say register here. So that should go ahead and do it for all the copy updates here inside of our markup. So what we also want to do is we no longer have the need for our confirm password data value here. So let's go ahead and remove that. And then since we're no longer using it here inside of our setup option, we don't need to return it. So let's go ahead and do that. And that should go ahead and wrap it up for our login. So let's go ahead and scroll back over to our browser here. And if we click on login now, let's do a quick refresh here. We should be taken to the login page here. And then if we click on the register portion here in the bottom, we should be taken back to our register page. So now that we have our register page created, we wanted to implement the ability for a user to sign up and create a new account through our register page. As of right now, it doesn't have any functionality to do so. Now we're here within our project on Supabase on the API section, and under the Getting Started tab here, we have this portion on user management. Now in here it shows us exactly how we need to go ahead and sign up a new user and create them an account for our project. And you can see right here we have sign up, and then it tells us how we can go ahead and do it right here. So all we need to do is call supabase.auth and then the method sign up, and then we need to pass a email and then a password. All right, so let's go ahead and begin to implement this into our register page. Now, since we're going to be using Supabase to create our user, we need to import Supabase into our file here. So let's say import, and we're going to use our brackets here, and we'll say Supabase, and we want to import this from our init file that we went ahead and created earlier on in this video. So we're going to navigate to our Supabase folder and then look for our init file. Now, the other thing we do need to import here is the use router. Now, within our register function, what we're going to be doing is once they sign up, we're going to go ahead and push them to the login page. Now, in order to do that, we need to import use router here from Vue router. All right. Now, with those imports completed, we can begin to create our register function. So let's go ahead and create that. So we're going to say const register. And we're going to set this equal to a sync function here. So we'll have our brackets, and then we'll have our arrow function here. And then we'll put a semicolon there. Now, the first thing that we want to do before anything is you want to do a check to ensure this password value right here is going to be equal to this confirm password value. So we're going to do an if check here, and we're going to say if password dot value is equal to confirm password dot value, then we will continue on here. Now, if it isn't, what we want to do is let's go ahead and put some comments there. Is if it's not true, you want to go ahead and throw an error. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say error message dot value is going to equal the message of error, and we're going to say passwords do not match. All right. Now we don't want this error to stay present forever, so we're going to go ahead and use a set timeout method here to go ahead and remove the error after so much time. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to have our arrow function, and then we want to execute this set timeout after 5 seconds. So we're going to go ahead and pass the value 5000 here as the second value within our set timeout method. Now what we want to execute in here is we want to go ahead and simply set the error message dot value and put this to null. Okay, so that's what we're going to do if the passwords don't match here. Now if they do match, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and try, and we're going to reach out to Supabase and create our user an account. So we'll do a try catch block here. So we'll say try, and then we'll say catch, and then we'll pass in here the error, and then we'll have that. Okay, so first off, what we want to do is if we go back over to Supabase here, we want to go ahead and call Supabase and auth, and then we want to use the sign up method here, and then we want to pass the current email and password that we have within our register page here. So we'll say const, and I'm going to go ahead and destructure the response here and only grab the error out of this, and we're going to say await, and we'll say Supabase dot auth, and then we want to call the method of sign up here. And then what we want to pass inside of here is going to be the email, which is going to be the email dot value, and then our password, which is going to be password dot value. All right, and that's going to be the function we need to call to create our user an account. Now what we want to do is, because there could possibly be some errors that Supabase could throw at us, so we want to go ahead and detect that error. So we're going to say if the error that we get back inside of this call is true, then we want to throw the error. Okay, and I don't know why it does that, so we're going to say throw error. Okay, now what we also want to do is if this is successful, so if there's no error, this won't run, we want to go ahead and push them to the login page. So to do that, what we need to do is we need to create a reference to our router. So what I'm going to do is inside of or below this comment of create data / vars, I'm going to go ahead and create a reference to our router here. So I'm going to call this const, and we're going to say router, and we're going to set this equal to use router here. Okay, so then what we can do is right below this if right here, we're going to say router, and we're going to call the push method here. And then we want to push them to the page of login. All right. Now, if we do have an error, we want to go ahead and output that error. So what we're going to say here is error, and let's see, is it ERROR, error message, don't know why it wasn't popping up, and then the value we're going to set equal to our error dot, and why is it doing that, console log dot error, I don't know why it's doing that for us here. We want to set this equal to the error dot message. All right, and that is going to be our function. Now what we need to do is you want to go ahead and return this value here within our return statement, so that way we can use it within our template tags here. And then on our form, we want to go ahead and do a event listener for submit. Now we also want to prevent the default from happening when we submit a form, which is to refresh the page, so we don't want to do that. And then the function we want to call is going to be our register function here. So that's going to go ahead and do it. Now the next thing we need to do is actually test this out and make sure everything works. So before we do that, there is a few updates that we need to make to our register function that I did forget. Now what we need to do is, as you can see right here, if this is true, we want to run this try catch block. But what is going to happen is, regardless if this is true or not, this right here is going to run. Now to avoid that from happening, if this statement right here is true, at the end of our try catch block here, we need to go ahead and return out of this function, so that way this doesn't execute. All right, now also to keep things consistent here, we should add the set timeout to our catch block here in the event that Supabase does throw an error itself. All right, and that should go ahead and complete it for our register function here. So let's go ahead and test this out. So within our browser here, we can see that we have an unexpected error. So let me go ahead and see what's going on here. So it looks like the error is right here. So var Supabase equals import dot, oh, you know what? When we did the import of our init file for Supabase, it appears we left on some of the defaults that we copied and pasted in. So if we go to Supabase and go to our init file, instead of saying import.meta, this should be process.env, and I believe that should go ahead and resolve our error here. Okay, so let's go ahead and register. So I'm going to use my email here, and we'll say johnkomarnicki.com, and let's go ahead and test out our validation here. So I'm going to go ahead and type in the correct password that I want, and then I'm going to go and type in a bad password here, and let's see what happens when I click register. So if I do that, we get this little error right here. It says error, passwords do not match, and we should see it disappear after 5 seconds, which we did. So that is working great. Now let's go ahead and type this in correctly here, and let's see what happens. So what should happen is, if everything's working properly, when I click register, I should get pushed over to the login page, and if we go over to our Supabase project, we should see that we have a new user created. So let's go ahead and cross our fingers here and click on register. And that did, oh, okay, it did work. It took a few seconds here. And as you can see, now we're on the login page. And if we go back to our Supabase project here, and I believe under authentication and users, you can see we now have a user for our application. Now that we have the ability to create an account, we also want to implement the ability to log into that account. Now back here within our Supabase project on the API section under the user management tab here, they tell us exactly how we need to go ahead and log in with our email and password into Supabase. And it's very similar, if not identical, to how we signed up. We're going to go ahead and reference supabase.auth, and then we're going to call the sign in method instead of the sign up method. And then we're going to go ahead and send along the email and the password for that user specific account. So back here inside of our project, let's go ahead and update a few things here that we missed when we did the copy and paste in from our register file. And we'll change this to login, and then we'll reference the comment here and we'll change this to login as well. Now, very similar to how we did within our register file, we need to go ahead and import Supabase here from our init file. So we'll go ahead and reference that from our Supabase folder here and then say init. And then we're also going to be using the use router here because we're going to go ahead and do a push to the home page on a successful login. Now, for our login function here, let's go ahead and create this. So we're going to say const login is going to be equal to an async function, and then we'll do our arrow function here. Oops, what's going on here? I went to a new line. Let's do that and open this up. Now, the first thing we want to go ahead and do is we don't need to do any validation. We're just going to go ahead and do a try catch block here. So we're going to attempt to log into Supabase, and if we get an error, we're going to go ahead and catch that error, and then we'll output it into our error handling div right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and try to log into Supabase here. So we're going to go ahead and set up a variable here. And we want to go ahead and destructure the response from Supabase and only get the error back. And we're going to set this equal to await supabase.auth, and then we're going to call the sign in method here. Now within here, we want to go ahead and pass along the email, which is going to be email.value, and then our password here, which is going to be password.value, and that's going to be our call to Supabase. Now we want to go ahead and check if the error that we return, or if there's an error present on this call right here. So we're going to say if this right here is true, then we want to go ahead and throw an error which will take us out of this try block and then throw us into the catch block here. And then we're going to go ahead and output that error. Now, if there's no error present, what we want to do is push the user to the home page. So we need to go ahead and create a reference to the router here. So we're going to say const router equals use router like that. And then what we can do right below this if check here is say router dot push, and we want to go ahead and push them to the name, and then we're going to say home here. Now, if we have an error, what we want to go ahead and do is we want to output that error into our error message data value right here. So what we'll do is we'll say error message dot value is going to be equal, and we're going to do some interpolation here. So we're going to be using backticks, and we're going to say error, and then we want to output the error dot message. All right. And to keep things consistent, we don't want to show this error forever. So what we can do is go over to our register function here, and we can copy this set timeout. And then after 5 seconds, that error is going to go ahead and disappear. And that should do it for our login function. So what we want to do in order to use this is let's go ahead and copy this and return it here. Now to call this login function, what we want to do is go up to our form here, and we want to listen for a submit. And then we also want to prevent the default from happening, which is going to refresh the page if we don't add this here. And then we want to go ahead and call our login function. All right, so that should go ahead and do it. So let's head back over to our browser and test logging in to our application. So let's go ahead and enter our email here. So we're going to say john@johnkomarnicki.com, and this is go ahead and test to make sure that our error handling is correct. Let's go ahead and type in a bad password here and see what happens, what we get return from Supabase, because this is not going to be the correct account information. So if I click login here, you can see that the first error we have is I did not confirm my email. So let's go ahead and actually do that. So our error handling is working. So let's go ahead and confirm it here. And there we go. I think that confirmed it. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. And let's try this again. So if I click on login, you can see that now the error we're getting is invalid email or password. So let's go ahead and try this correctly now that I put the correct password in here. If I click login, you can see that that did work, and we got redirected back to our home page. So now we're able to register and also log in successfully to our application. So now that we can create an account and log into our application, we need a way for our app to go ahead and detect that we're currently logged in, because right now we're logging in and we have no way for our application to know if we're logged in or not. Now, the first thing we need to do is set up our store using the composition API, because this is where we're going to store a reference to whether or not a user is logged in, because we need to go ahead and reference this value of user in several files within our application. Now we're going to go ahead and create our store or state management using the composition API. Now I did do a little tutorial on how this works on my channel, so if you want to get more information on how we actually set up a store and state management using the composition API in a little bit more depth, head over to my channel and be sure to watch that video. I'm going to go ahead and walk you through it regardless here, but I'm not really going to go ahead and explain all that much here. So first thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and make our data reactive. So we need to go ahead and import reactive here. and we're going to say from Vue. Now let's go ahead and create our state here. So we're going to create a new object and we're going to call this state, and we want to go ahead and wrap this state in our reactive method here. And then we want to go ahead and create a new value of state, which we're going to go ahead and call user, and we're going to set that equal to null. Now, in order to access this state in other files within our application, we need to go ahead and export this. So we're going to export default, and we're going to go ahead and just export our state here. All right, so that's all we need to go ahead and do for now. Now let's head back over to our app.vue here, and we need to go ahead and set up a few things. So I want to go ahead and create a new value of data here, which is going to be called const app ready, and we want to set this equal to a ref, and we're going to set the initial value to null. Now I don't believe we have imported ref here, so let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to say import, and then we'll do ref from Vue here, so we can use that within our application, or sorry, within our file here. Now we also are going to be using Supabase within this file as well, so we want to go and import that as well. So let's say Supabase from our init file here. So let's go ahead and navigate to our, I believe we can just do / here, and we'll say Supabase and then our init. So the next step we want to do is we need to check if a user is already logged in. Now I believe if we head over to the browser here, and we got an error because we assigned app ready, but we never actually used it, so don't worry about that. I believe we can go ahead and get the user if they're signed in by calling this right here of supabase.auth.getUser. So that's what we're going to do. So let's go ahead and create this new value of data here. So we're going to say const user is going to equal supabase.auth.user here. All right, so let's go ahead and put a semicolon there. So the reason why we want to go ahead and check this is because we need to do an if check right here and say if the user does not exist, we want to make our application ready. So we'll go ahead and do an if check here. So we're going to say if user is null, then we want to go ahead and say app ready.value is equal to true here. And what I want to do really quick is let's go ahead and output app ready here, and then we're going to go ahead and do a vif on our wrapper here for our main application. So we're going to say vif and only if the app is ready. Okay, now you can see here the last portion we need to do is when we receive an auth state change, whether that is logging in or logging out, we want to go ahead and update this value of state here of our user, because if we have a user logged in, we want to go ahead and set this user piece of state to that specific user, and if it's not, we want to set it back to null. So if we go back over to the documentation here, I can show you that there is some documentation on the auth state change, which is a method. So every time that there is an auth state change within our application, this will go ahead and run. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go back over to our file here, and we'll do a few line breaks here, and we're going to say supabase.auth, and we're going to say .onAuth state change. And we're going to go ahead and pass in here. Let's see, we want to do a few parameters. So we're going to do a underscore here, and then we want to say the session. All right, and then we're going to have our callback here. So what we want to do is we don't have this created yet, but we need to go ahead and reference our store, because we're going to go ahead and create what they call a mutation, which is going to be updating our value of state. Now, in order to use our store that we created right here, we need to go ahead and import that into our file. Okay, so we're going to say import, we'll say store from, and then we want to go ahead and look for our store. So we'll say / our store, and then we're going to say index here. Okay, so then what we can do here, we haven't created this yet, so this may be a little confusing. So we're going to say store dot method. So we're going to reference our store, and we're going to have an object which is going to be called methods, and we're going to go ahead and create a method called set user here, and we want to go ahead and pass along the session here, which is going to be returned in this auth state change. So let's go ahead and just copy and paste that in here. All right, now after this, what we want to do is then we want to set the app ready.value to true here, and that's going to go ahead and do it for our app.vue. Now what we want to do is let's go ahead and go back over to our index.js here and create that method. So we're going to say const methods, is going to equal an object here, and we're going to call this set user, and we're going to accept a payload here, which is going to be what we're sending, which is a session. And we want to go ahead and update the state.user. So what we're going to do here is we're going to check if this payload is true, because remember, if we log out, we're also going to send a session, but it's going to be null. And what we want to do is, because if we say, well, if we go ahead and do it just like this, if we send over the payload and on that session, they're going to be a user portion of it. If this is null, this is not going to be available, and therefore it's going to throw an error. So what we need to do here to avoid an error is you want to check if the payload is true. Now, if it is true, we're going to say payload.user, and otherwise, if it's false, we'll go ahead and set the user back to null. All right, so that's all we need to do. Now, in order to use our methods, I almost forgot, we want to go ahead and export those down here with our state. So we'll say methods like that, and now we'll have access to use those inside of our auth state change right here. Now, one thing I did realize is we spelled Supabase wrong here. So I do want to show you exactly how this works, because it's maybe a little confusing. I'll go over it in a little more detail here really quickly as well. So what's happening when our app is first created, we are setting this variable or this data value of app ready to null, which is going to prevent our application from rendering out. So what we're doing here is we're checking if we have a user logged in. Now, if we don't have a user logged in, we want to go ahead and make the app ready. So we're going to set that value to true, which is going to allow our app to render out. Okay. Now, if it is not true, then what's going to happen is this onAuth state is going to go ahead and fire because we have a user logged in, and we're going to go ahead and set the user to the current user that Supabase is seeing that is logged in within our store here. All right, and then we're going to set the app to be ready by saying app.ready or app.ready.value is true. Okay, now to show you this in a little bit more detail how this is working, let's go ahead and do a console.log here, and we're going to output hello. Now, in order for this to work, what we also want to do is go over to our components here, and inside of our navigation, we need to go ahead and set up a logout function here. So let's go ahead and do that. And let's go ahead and import. We're going to be using Supabase here, so we'll say Supabase, and then we'll say from, and then we're going to go to our Supabase folder here, so we'll say supabase.init. And then what we also want to do is, because we're going to be pushing the user back to the home page on a logout in case they're on any other pages that they're not supposed to be, we're going to go ahead and import the use router here. So we'll say use router from view router here. So we're not going to go ahead and get the user from store just yet, but we do want to go ahead and set up a reference to the router. So we'll say const router is going to equal use router. All right. And then for our logout function, it's pretty simple. Let's go ahead and go below here and create this. So we're going to say const logout is going to equal a async function. And then what we're going to call here is you want to await supabase.auth, and we're going to call the sign out method here, and that's all we have to do. Now, after this, what we want to do is you want to redirect them to the home page. So we're going to say router.push, and we're going to say home here. All right. Now, to use this, what we want to do is we want to return this here, and then inside of our template here, we have this li tag with logout. We want to go ahead and say @click, and we want to run our logout function here. All right, so if we head back over to our browser and we go to our application, if I refresh this, we should see that we have everything back. So we're on the home page right now, and let's open up our console here so we can see this. All right, so you can see right now we are getting this hello because we're currently logged in. Now, if I log out, we should see that this hello is going to fire again. So if I click log out, you've seen that we have hello. And it looks like there's no match for, let's see, did I do something wrong within the logout function here? Router.push, oh, we did this completely wrong. This is supposed to be name, and then we need to set this to a, actually, let's do this correctly here, a name, and then home like that, and this should actually be capitalized. All right, so let us go ahead and fix that error. Now, if I refresh this here, you can see that's going to be wrong because it's taking us to the /home. We want to go back to this right here. So we're currently no longer logged in, so you're not going to see that we're going to get that hello, because what's happening is that we're not running this auth state change because it's not actually seeing a user. Okay, so now if we log in again and we say my email here and we log in with the password, you can see that it's going to fire that hello right here. All right, so hopefully that makes sense as we log in and log out of our application, or we simply do a refresh if we're still logged in, we're going to see that we're going to get this hello message because the on-auth state change is firing here. So now that we have access to this user value inside of our state, we can do some conditional rendering with our navigation links here. So if we're logged in, what we want to show is home, create, and then log out. Now, if the user is not logged in, we only want to show them home and then log in. So let's go ahead and begin to implement that here within our project. So let's go to our navigation component here. And what we want to do, as you can see here, we're going to go ahead and get the user from the store. So to do this, what we want to do is actually import our store into this component here. So we're going to say, let's go ahead and reach that. So we're going to go to our store folder, and then we're going to grab the index file. And we're also going to be using a computed value here inside of this file as well to reference our user from the store. So to do this, we want to go ahead and import compute it here, and we're going to say from, and it goes directly to Vue reactivity. I normally just do Vue. I don't know if there's really a difference, but we're going to go ahead and just say Vue here. Now what we want to do is you want to create a new value, data value here called user, and we want to set this equal to a computed value here, and we want to return the store.state.user here. All right. And then let's go ahead and save this, and we'll do a line break here to add some separation. And then to use this user value inside of our template, let's go ahead and return it here. And then let's go ahead and do some conditional rendering here. Now, for the home route, we always want to show this, so we don't have any need to use a VIF on the home route here. But for create, we only want to show this if the user is true. So we're going to say VIF user. Now for log in, we only want to show this if the user is false here. And then for log out, we only want to show this if the user is true. So let's go ahead and test this out to make sure everything is working. So if we go back over to our browser, you can see that we're currently logged in. So we're seeing the navigation links of home, create, and then log out. Now if I click on log out here, you can see that now we're only prompted with home and log in. And then if I go click log in again, and we do our email and our password, we should see these are once again going to be updated to home, create, and then log out. Now the next thing that we're going to implement is the ability to create or record a workout, and this is what we're going to be building right here. So we have our input for workout name, and then we can go ahead and select a workout type. Now for this application, we have two different types. We have a strength training, and then we also have a cardio. So if I select strength training here, you can see we're going to have the exercise, the amount of sets, the amount of reps, and the weight that you did for that particular exercise. Now if we go ahead and do cardio, is a little bit different. We're going to have the type of cardio, which can be a run or a walk, the distance, the duration, and the pace. And then we can also go ahead and add as many exercises as we want for that particular workout type. All right, so let's go ahead and begin to implement this into our project here. So to begin, what we need to do is set up a route inside of our router for our create file here. So let's go to our router folder and let's go to the index.js, and let's go ahead and first off import our create file here. So right below register, I'll just copy and paste this, and we'll say create like that. And then right below our register path here, I'll go ahead and copy this as well, and we'll go ahead and create our create path. So we'll change out register and we'll say create here, and then we can just highlight both of these and we can say create like that, and now we should have our create route. So to go ahead and make sure this is working, let's go ahead and add an H1 here, and we'll just say create. And now if we head back over to our browser here and we go and to the route of /create here, we should see we have the text of create. But now if we click on home here inside of our navigation and click on create, you can see we aren't navigated to our create route because we haven't yet associated our router link to our new route. So let's go ahead and do that. So back inside of our file here, or our project, let's go to the components and our navigation file, and then let's go ahead inside of this name here for our create router link, associate this to our create route. So we'll say create. And now if we go back over to our browser here and we click on home, and if I click on create, we should now be taken to our create file. Now, because we're going to be referencing our data that we are creating inside of our setup option here within our markup, let's go ahead and create that data here first. So to begin, we need to import our ref from Vue to make our data reactive. Now let's go ahead and create our data here. So we'll say const workout name, and we want to set this workout name to a ref of an empty string here. Now the next one we have here is going to be for our workout type, which we can either have to be cardio or strength training. Now initially we want to set this equal to the value of select workout. Let's just go ahead and save that. Now the next one we want to go ahead and create here is going to be for exercises. Now this is actually going to be an array, so to start we're going to go ahead and set this equal to an empty array, and then let's go ahead and change the name here to exercises. All right. And then that should be all the data that we need to create for our workout information. Now we also need to create two more pieces of data to handle our error handling. So we're going to create the first one here called status message, and we'll set this equal to a ref of null, and didn't do the parentheses, we'll say null. And then finally what we have here is we're going to have our error message. Okay, and that should be it for all the data. Now to access this data inside of our markup and our template tags here, let's go ahead and return this. So we will say workout name, workout type, we have our exercises, status message, and then our error message. So let's remove this H1 as we're not going to need it, and let's begin to populate the correct markup here. So the first thing we want to do is on our div wrapper here is add a few classes. Now the first one we want to add is max, w, screen, and MD. Now what this is going to do is restrict this div from getting no longer than the breakpoint of medium that Tailwinds defines. And to center this, we want to say MX auto here. And then let's add some padding to the left and right. So we'll say PX4, and then we'll do some padding to the top and bottom. We'll say PY10. Now inside of this div, we're going to have two different children. We're going to have our status message, which is going to go ahead and display any kind of message if the creation was successful or if we had any errors. And then we're also going to have the ability to create our workout. Okay, so let's go ahead and start off with our status message here. So I'm going to do a comment, and we'll say status message like that. And let's go ahead and create a div for this. Now we don't always want to display this, so what we can do here is use our data values of status message. So we can only say show this if status message or if our error message is true. So let's go ahead and paste it in there like that. Now for the classes we want to add here, we're going to say margin bottom 10 to give it some separation. We're going to do padding of 4 around all sides. We're going to do a background color of BG, and we'll say light gray, which is one of our custom colors. And then we're going to do a little bit of rounded corners on here, so we'll say rounded MD. Now inside of here, we're going to have a few paragraph tags, one for the status message and then one for the error. So for our paragraph tag for the status message, let's go ahead and just output this. So we're going to just say status message like that. And then let's go ahead and add a few classes here. So we're going to say text color is going to be AT light green here, and that's all we need to do. Now to go and make this look a little bit better, let's just go ahead and do a few line breaks here, and I think that looks a little bit more better formatted here. Now for the error message, let's go ahead and output this as well. So we'll just say error, oops, it's not inside of that one. We'll say error message here. And then for the class, we want to go and make this text red, so we're going to say text red, and then we'll say 500 here, and that should go ahead and do it for our status message. Now below here, let's go ahead and do a few line breaks and then add a comment for our create form. So let's go ahead and open up a div here, and then let's add a few classes. So what we want to say here is we're going to give it a padding value of 8 around all sides. We want to display this as flex. We want to align the items to the start. So we're going to say items dash start. And then we want to give it a background color of BG, and we're going to use our light gray color here. And then we're going to say rounded MD, and we're also going to give this a shadow -lg. Now to keep things consistent, I think we did the same thing. I forgot to add this in the initial project that I created, so let's go ahead and add this shadow large to our status message here as well. Now let's just close that back up. Now inside of our div here, let's go ahead and create our form. So we'll go ahead and say form here, not from, form. All right. So let's go ahead and define our form tags here, and we don't need an action. But what we want to do here is, let's see, it's lagging a little bit. Let's add a few classes to this as well. So we're going to say flex, and then we want to define this as flex column here. And then we're going to have it be a gap of y-5 for some separation for all of the items inside of here. And then we want this to take up the full space available, so we're going to say w full like that. Now inside of here we're going to have our h1 to start off with, so we'll do an h1, and then what we want to have this say is record workout, and I spelled that wrong as well too, workout. And then we need to add a few classes to our h1 here as well, so we're going to say text-2xl to increase the size, and then we want to add the text color of at-light green here. Now what we want to do next is we're going to have two initial inputs here that are going to be displayed when we are brought to this page here. We're going to have the workout name input and also the workout type input. So let's go ahead and create those. So I'll do a line breaker 2 here, and we'll say a comment of workout name here, and then let's go ahead and create this div. All right, so the classes we want to apply here are going to be flex and then flex cow. Now inside of here we're going to have our label, and we're going to say this is for workout dash name, and we're going to pass a few classes here, which is going to be margin bottom of 1. We're going to have the text size of SM, so text SM, and then we're going to pass it the text color of AT light green like that. And for the actual label content, we'll say workouts, and we'll do name, and we'll save that here. Okay, now below this we want to have our input, so let's go ahead and create our tag here, and this is going to be the input type of text. We want to require this input to be filled out, and let's pass it a few classes here. So we're going to say padding around all sides of 2. We're going to say the text color is going to be gray-500, and on the focus state we want to go ahead and get rid of the outline here, so we'll say outline, and we'll set this equal to none here. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we also need to pass it the ID value for the label to work correctly, so we'll say workout name like that, and let's go ahead and save that to reformat that. And lastly, what we want to do here is hook up our V model to our data value that we have created inside our setup option here. So we'll go ahead and hook up workout name here to our input. All right, and there we go. That is going to be our workout name. Now the next input that we want to go ahead and create is going to be for our workout type, which is going to be a list to select from. So do a few line breaks here, and we'll say workout type here, and let's go ahead and create this div. So once again, we'll have the class of flex and flex cow. And what we can do, because the labels are going to be the same, so we can go ahead and copy this label right here inside of our workout name and paste this inside of our workout type here. And let's go ahead and change this from workout name to type, and also workout type here as well. Now below this, we're not going to have an input tag, we're going to have a select tag here. And what we want to do is we don't need to define it a name, so we're going to go ahead and remove this. We don't need that. But for the ID, we're going to go ahead and give it the value of workout type here. And then for the classes, what we want to do, it's going to be the same as our input. So let's go ahead and save some time here and not rewrite everything. We're going to go ahead and add the same classes here. So we'll say padding around all sides of 2, text gray 500, and focus outline of none. And then what we also want to do is we need to hook up we want to go ahead and require this as well. So we'll say required, and that should reformat it. And then lastly, we want to go ahead and hook up our V model here of workout type. Copy this, and we'll paste that in here. So that should go ahead and do it for our initial 2 values that we're going to display when we come to our create page here. So we're not quite yet done with our workout type input. I forgot to go ahead and add the option values that you're able to select from within our select drop down list here. So let's go ahead and add those. So to add these, we're going to add a option tag. And for the first option value attribute, let's go ahead and add select workout here. And then what we want to add in between our option tags here is select, and we'll say workout like that. Okay. Now we have two other options that we want to go ahead and pass. So I'm going to go ahead and create an option tag here, and we'll just duplicate this. Now the first one's going to be for our strength training. So we're going to go ahead and pass the value here of strength. And then inside of the option tag, or between the option tag, we're going to go ahead and pass strength training. All right. And now the last one that we want to add is going to be for our cardio. So let's go ahead and add a cardio here for the value, and then we'll go ahead and put cardio between our option tags here. So now if we save this and go back over to our browser, we're left with something like this. So we have our header here. We can go ahead and enter a workout name, and we can select a workout type of strength training or cardio. Now what we need to do is when a user selects either strength training or cardio, we want to go ahead and output the correct inputs to go ahead and create either a strength training exercise or a cardio exercise. So just below our workout type input here, let's go ahead and do a few line breaks. And the first set of inputs that we're going to be creating are for the workout type of strength. So let's add a comment here, and we'll say strength and training inputs like that. Now what we want to do is create a div here. So we only want to show these inputs if the workout type is equal to strength. So what we'll do is we'll add a VIF on here and only show this if the workout type is equal to, and we'll say strength here. Okay, now let's go ahead and add a few classes to this div here. And what we're going to say is we want to set the display to flex. We want the flex direction to be a column. And for each row that we have within this div, we want to go ahead and add some separation to it. So we're going to say gap y, and we'll say 4. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we have this exercises array right here, which is going to contain all of the exercises for a user's particular workout. Now we're going to go ahead and give them the ability to add as many exercises as they want to their workout. Now to dynamically go ahead and allow for this, we need to run a v-for loop on this exercises data value right here and output inputs for each amount or each exercise that they want to create for that particular workout. So hopefully that makes sense. Let's go ahead and get into it here. So let's go ahead and create our div, and we'll add some classes here. So we want to display this as flex. We want to set the direction of this flex to flex column on mobile here. And then we're going to say gap, let's see, gap x is 6. Now what this is going to do is very similar to how we have gap y4 here. This is going to go ahead and space out the columns that we're going to be creating here for this div. Now we also want to go ahead and add some separation here to the rows. So we're going to say gap y and 2, because on mobile these will be stacked. So we want to go ahead and add some separation between each one of these when we are on the mobile version. And we're also going to give this position relative here, because we're going to go ahead and set up a delete icon that we're going to be positioning absolute to this div right here. So we want to go ahead and make sure this is set to relative. Now once we get to a median breakpoint here, we want to go ahead and convert this from a flex column into a flex row. So we'll say flex row like this. Now let's go ahead and create our v-for loop here. So we're going to say v-for, and we're going to go ahead and say for each item, and I'm going to go ahead and pass an index along with this, that we have inside of our exercises array here. Okay. Now if we save this, you'll see we get an error. Now if you're unfamiliar with how Vue works, when you run a v-for loop, you need to assign a unique key to that particular div, which is what we're going to do right here with our index value. So we'll bind a key here and we'll say index, and that should go ahead and resolve our error. Now what we want to do is create some inputs here. So for each exercise that we have, we're going to have 4 inputs. So we're going to have the exercise name, we're going to have the amount of sets, the reps, and then the weight. So let's go and open up this div here and do a few line breaks. And let's start off with the first one. So what we're going to say here is we're going to create a div, which is going to have the class of flex. Then we're going to say flex-col for flex column, set the direction there. And then we want to go ahead and say on medium screens here, which I'll just save this to go to make it a little bit easier to read. Now on medium screens, what we want to do here is we want to set the width to be, let's see, width-1 divided by 3, because you want the name to be a little bit larger than the sets and the reps and the weight, because those are all going to be numbers and the name could be a little bit larger. So you want to go ahead and allow for a little bit more room when it comes to actually assigning the exercise name here. Now, inside of here, what we're going to do is we're going to have our label, and the first one's going to be for exercise-name. And for the classes we're going to assign here, we're going to say margin bottom 1, we're going to say text-sm, and for the text color, we're going to say AT dash, and let's spell this right, light green here. And for the actual value inside of the label, we'll say exercise. All right, and there we go. Now below this, you want to go and create our input here. So let's say input, and we're going to say type of text, and we also want to require this, so we'll say required here. And for the classes that we're going to add, let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to say padding around all sides of 2. We're going to say width is going to be W full, so take up the full amount of width. And then we want to set the text color here. We're going to say text gray, which is GRAY, and 500. And then on the focus state here, we're going to set outline, and we're going to set that to none. And let's save that to reformat it. Now, what we're going to do is inside of this exercise array, we're going to have an object, and for each object, we're going to go ahead and have all the exercise information. So what we're going to do here is set up a V model, and we want to go ahead and associate this V model to the item, and we're going to go ahead and have a value inside of that object called exercise here. So we want to go ahead and bind that to this. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Now to save some time here, these are going to be the exact same markup structure for the additional 3 of them. So let's go ahead and duplicate this down one more time. So what I'm going to do here is, because this one actually be a little bit different from the remaining 3, so what we're going to do is just modify this one here a little bit and then copy it down 2 more times. Now the next one we're going to go ahead and create here is going to be for our sets. So let's go ahead and open this up here. Now the first thing we want to change here is we don't want this to take up 1/3 on medium viewports. What we want to do is set this to flex-1 here to take up equal amount of space for the rest of the remaining divs inside of this parent div right here. So let's go ahead and change a few things here. So instead of saying exercise name here, we're going to have sets, and then we'll change this to sets right here. And then instead of having item.exercise, we'll say item.sets here. And I just realized we didn't really spell this right, so this needs to be green right here, and we'll save that. And then same thing here as well. And I think everything else, text AT light green, that looks good. Okay, so this is going to be the format for the remaining 2 more. So what I'm going to do is just copy and paste this down 2 more times, and let's go ahead and modify the labels and then the V model here. So the next one we're going to have is going to be for reps, so we'll change this to reps, and then we'll do the same thing here. We'll say reps like this, and then for the V model here, we'll go ahead and change this to reps. And then the last one here is going to be for weight. So let's go ahead and say for weight here, and then we'll change the value here. We'll say weight, and we'll just go ahead and put lbs for pounds. Okay, and then the last item thing we need to portion we need to change here is the item, and we'll change this to item.weight here. Okay, now that's going to be it for our inputs. Now the next thing we want to go ahead and do is add an image here. So where we're going to do this is inside of this div below the final input here. So we'll go ahead and create our image tag here. And then for the source, where we want to go is into our assets folder. So we're going to say @ and then we're going to say /assets. We're going to go into our images folder here, and we want to go ahead and grab the trash light green.png. Okay, and then for the class that we want to add here, first off, we want to go ahead and give it a height value. So we're going to say h4. We're going to say width, set that to auto. We want to go ahead and position this absolute, because if you recall, what we did here is we set this position on this div to relative. So we're going to set the position of this image absolute to this div right here. So we'll say absolute. And where we want to position this is negative left 5. So we want to go to the left 5 or -5. And then we're going to set this to have a pointer. So we're going to say cursor, and we'll do dash pointer here. Okay, and that should be it for our image for now. Now the last thing we want to have here is a button in order for us to go ahead and add an additional exercise. Now what we can do is, because we've already created this button before, let's go to one of our components, or views I should say, such as Loggin here, and let's grab this button here. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab this and copy it, and we'll go ahead and paste it inside of our crate file here. So let's go ahead and do this. Now what we want to do is go right below the image here, and we're going to go ahead and copy and paste this in. Now instead of the same type of submit, we're going to go ahead and change this to a type of button here, and then what we want to add here, instead of saying login, we'll say add exercise. All right, and that should go ahead and do it for this set of inputs here. So if we save this and head back over to our browser now, we should be able to go ahead and select on the workout type of strength training, and you can see that we're not getting anything, so we may have made an error somewhere. So let me go ahead and check what's happening here. So the reason why we're not seeing any of our inputs is because of the array that we're doing a v-for loop through, which is our exercise array right here. And currently it is empty. So what we can do for testing purposes here to make sure everything's working properly is just go ahead and add a value to our array here. So we'll just go ahead and add a number of 1. And if we save this and go back over to our browser now, and we do a refresh, and we change the workout type to strength training, we should now see our inputs. And it looks like I made a mistake with the markup here, so it appears that I added the button inside of the actual input div here. So let's head back over here and let's see here. So yeah, the button should be on the outside of this div right here, because we don't want to go ahead and output a button for each exercise we have. We just want to go ahead and have one button to go ahead and add that exercise here. So if we save this, head back over here now, there we go, that looks a lot better. And if I go ahead and change this back to select workout, we're no longer going to see our inputs here. But then if I go ahead and add it back, you can see that it's going to add the correct inputs here for our strength training workout type. So for our other workout type of cardio, the markup that we're going to be creating for the inputs is very similar to the markup that we just created here for our strength training. So what we can do is go ahead and copy this markup, do a few line breaks, and go ahead and paste it below. Now let's go ahead and start at the top here and make the following updates. So for the comment here, let's go ahead and change this to cardio, and we only want to show this if the workout type is equal to cardio. Now we're still going to go ahead and do a v-for loop through our exercises right here, but for the input type here, we're not going to go ahead and have the first one be a text type. It's going to be a drop down with a list of different options for the exercise, which will be a run or a walk. So what we can do here is go ahead and update this. So we'll go ahead and remove the input here, and let's go ahead and do a select. And then for the name here, what we're going to go ahead and do is remove that. We don't need it. Now for the ID, we'll go ahead and change this to cardio type here. And then for the label here, let's go ahead and update this. We'll say cardio-type. And then for the actual label value, we'll change this to type here. All right. Now inside of our select here, let's go ahead and add a few more attributes here. So let's go ahead and save this. Now the next attribute that we want to add is our class. Oops, let's go ahead and go out of the ID here. So for the classes we're going to add here, we're going to have a padding value of 2. We're going to say width of full, and then we're going to say text gray, and we're going to say 500. And then for the focus here, we're going to say outline and change this to none. All right. And then for the V model here, we'll say V model, and we're going to change this to item.cardio, and we'll say camel case this type here. Okay. So now inside of our select option here, what we want to go ahead and do is add our options. So let's do an option tag here. And for the first value here, we're going to go ahead and set this to an empty pound sign or a pound sign. And then we're going to say select type. Now we're going to go ahead and have 2 other options here. So the second one is going to be for a run. So we'll go ahead and pass the value of run in here. And then we'll go ahead and pass the text for run. And then we'll go ahead and have one more, which is going to be for our walk. So we'll go ahead and say walk here, and we'll change this to walk like that. Okay. And that should go ahead and do it for the first input here. Now for the second one here, we're going to go ahead and change this from sets, and we're going to change this to distance here. So we'll go ahead and change sets here, and we'll say distance like that. And then instead of saying item.sets here, we'll say item.distance like that. All right. And that should do it for the second input. So let's go ahead and close that up here. Now for the third one, this is going to be for the duration. So we'll go ahead and say duration here, and then we'll say duration as well here, and then let's change this to item.duration. And then the last one's going to be for the pace here. So we'll change this from wait to pace, and then we'll change this label to output pace here, and then for the item we'll say item.pace like that. All right, and that should go ahead and do it for the inputs for our cardio type, and everything else will be the same. The image will be in the same position, and the button will be the same. So now if we collapse this and we head over to our browser here, we should see that if I do a refresh here, we should have different inputs for our different types of workouts. So if we select strength training here, we have our strength training inputs. And if we do cardio, we have our cardio inputs here. And if I go ahead and select the drop down, we have runs and we have a walk. Now, the last thing we need to do is add a button to go ahead and actually record our workout. So let's go ahead and add that. So what we can do is go into our cardio input div right here, and we can go ahead and copy the button that we just created for our cardio input as well as our strength training. And all we need to do is go below our cardio input here and go ahead and paste this button in. Now the two things you want to go ahead and change here is the type of button. We want to go ahead and change this to submit. So when we click this, we can go ahead and fire a function on our form. And we also want to change the text here from add exercise to record workout here. So if we save this just to go ahead and do it for our creation here, at least for the markup, so we take a look at it now, we have our workout name, we have the workout type drop down here, which when we select this to go to strength training, we get the following inputs as well as cardio. And if we remove this, we don't get anything. And then we have our button to go ahead and record our workout. So let's begin to implement some functionality into our creation page, starting with the ability to add an exercise to our exercises array here. So let's go ahead and create our function. We'll call this add exercise, and we'll set this equal to an arrow function. Now what we want to do first is we want to check the workout type. Now the reason we're doing this is because each one of our workout type of strength training or cardio is going to have two different object structures that we're going to pass on to this exercises array here. So let's go ahead and check if the workout type is a strength training. So we're going to say if workout type dot value is equal to strength. Now, if this is true, what we want to do is we want to target our exercises array here and the value, and we want to go ahead and push a new object onto this array. Now, what we want to pass here is we're going to have an ID. Now, to generate a unique ID for each one of these exercises, we're going to be using a package that we installed called UID here. All right. So to use this, we need to import it. So we're going to say import, and then we'll do UID, we'll say from, and then UID here. Now to use this on our object, we can say UID and then declare it with our parentheses here, and that's going to go ahead and create a unique ID for us. Now the next thing we want to go ahead and pass on this object is going to be an exercise for the name, so we'll go ahead and pass this as an empty string. And then we have our sets, which will pass as an empty string, and then we have our reps, will pass as an empty string, and then finally our weights here as an empty string. And that's going to go ahead and be it for the object if it is a strength training workout. Now, what we want to do is, because we're going to check for if it's strength or cardio, if this is true here, then we don't want to do anything else. So we're going to go ahead and return out of this function. So we'll just say return here. Now, if this isn't true, then we know that the exercise they selected is going to be cardio because we only have two options. So what we'll do is then we'll target exercise again here, and we'll say value, and we'll do a push. And this time we're going to go ahead and push a different object. So we're going to have an ID on here as well. So we'll say UID, and then instead of having a exercise, we're going to say cardio type here, and we'll set this equal to an empty string as well. Then we'll have our distance, which would be an empty string. And let's scroll down here. And then we have our duration, which will be an empty string. And then finally, we have our pace here, which will be an empty string as well. And that's going to go ahead and do it for our add exercise function here. Now we need to go ahead and add this in a few different places within our markup here. So let's go ahead and export this here, and we'll go ahead and do that right here inside of our return statement. So that way we can use it inside of our markup. And then what we want to do is you want to go up here, and inside of our strength training inputs, you want to go ahead and add this as a event listener inside of this button here. So each time we click on it, we want to go ahead and run that function of add exercise here. So we'll add it here, and then we'll also add it inside of our cardio input on this button as well. Now, if we take a look at our application here within the browser and we go and change our workout type to, let's say, strength training here, you can see by default we aren't seeing any inputs available to us. Now, if we go ahead and click our button here of add exercise, which now has our newly created function to add an exercise to the array, you can see we're going to go ahead and see those inputs here. So that is all working great. Now, what we want to do is we want to fix that initial state here when we go ahead and select a workout that we don't see any inputs. So what we're going to do is create a function that's going to listen for a change here on this input and then add the correct exercise for the type that the user has selected. So let's create our function, and we're going to call this workout change. And we're going to set this equal to an arrow function. Now what we want to do first is each time that our selection changes here, which is going to be our workout type, we want to go ahead and reinitialize our exercises array back to an empty array. So we'll say exercises dot value, and we'll just go ahead and set this to an empty array. Now the last thing that we need to do is then add the correct exercise to our exercises array based on the selection that the user chose from the drop-down menu of strength training or cardio. And to do that very easily, we can go ahead and just call our newly created function here of add exercise. So let's go ahead and paste this in here, and that is going to be the function that we need to call. So to use this function now, we want to go ahead and return it here inside of our return statement. And then what we want to do is head back up to our markup here, and then we need to add it as an event listener to go ahead and call that function each time that our selection changes. So here on our select input, we want to listen for the event of change, and then we want to run our workout change function. So now back here in our application, if we go ahead and change our workout type now to, let's say, strength training, we're going to have those inputs automatically generated for us when we make that change. And if we go ahead and change it to, let's say, cardio, it'll remove those. It's going to reinitialize the array and then add the correct ones here for our workout type of cardio. Now the next thing that we're going to implement is the ability to delete an exercise. So let's go ahead and create a function to handle this. Now this function is going to be called delete exercise, and we're going to set this equal to an arrow function. Now the first thing that we want to do prior to deleting this exercise from our workout is you want to go ahead and check that the user has at least a minimum of 2 exercises in their workout before deleting, because we want to at least ensure that when they submit or record their workout, they go ahead and have at least 1 exercise inside of their workout. So let's go ahead and do an if check here, and we're going to look at the exercises dot value, and we're going to look at the length here, and we want to go ahead and make sure that the length is greater than 1, meaning they have 2 exercises inside of their workout. Now this is true, we're going to go ahead and remove that particular exercise from their workout. Now to do this, we're going to go ahead and need to get the exercise ID, and we're going to go ahead and pass this as a param here within this function. And to go ahead and remove that particular exercise, we're going to be using the filter method here. So we'll say exercises dot value, and I'm just going to go ahead and copy this, and we're going to say equals exercises dot value, and we want to go ahead and run the filter method here. And then we're going to go ahead and define a param here. We'll say exercise, and then we'll have our callback. And what we want to go ahead and do here is you want to say the exercise dot ID that is not equal to the ID that we're passing here. And this is going to go ahead and filter out the specific exercise that we want to remove from this array right here. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. And then what we want to do is you want to return out of here. Now the reason why is because if this equates to false because it is not greater than 1, then we want to let the user know. So we're going to go ahead and output an error to our error status handling here in our markup. You can see right here. So let's go ahead and output that. So where we want to do this is right below our if check here. We're going to say error message dot value, and to save some time I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this error handling in here, the message that is, and we're going to go ahead and say that the error cannot remove, need to have at least one exercise. Okay, so that's pretty self-explanatory. We'll go ahead and put a semicolon here. Now what we want to go ahead and do is we want to remove this error after a certain amount of time, so we're going to go ahead and use a set timeout here, and then we'll accept a callback here. And then we want to execute this after 5 seconds, so we'll pass a value of 5,000. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to say error message dot value is equal to false. All right. So now what we want to do here is to use this inside of our markup. We need to return it here. And then we want to go ahead and actually use a click handler or a click event listener on our image to go ahead and call this delete exercise. And remember, we want to also go ahead and send over the ID. So we're going to say at click here, we're going to run delete exercise, and then we want to go ahead and pass in here the item.id. And then we also have to do this on our strength training as well, because it's the cardio. And then we want to do it on this one as well. So now if we choose our workout type here and we select cardio, and I try to delete the only one exercise that I have here in our workout, we should be output at this error right here. And if I go ahead and add another exercise here and I go to delete one of them, we should be able to delete that exercise from our workout. Now the final thing that we need to implement into our creation file is the ability to create a workout. So let's head over to Supabase and reference the documentation to show us exactly how we can go ahead and create a workout inside of our database. So here within our project on Supabase, I have pulled up the reference or documentation on how we can go ahead and insert a new row. And here on the right, we have the function that we want to go ahead and create to go ahead and do that. So all we're going to need to do, which is very similar to our login and register, we want to go ahead and reference Supabase here. And we're going to go ahead and say from, which our database is called the workouts. We're going to go ahead and pass workouts here in this from method. And then we want to go ahead and call the insert method, which is going to be an array, which will have an object, which will have all the columns that we want to go ahead and add to that particular row. So let's create our function, and we're going to call this create workout, and we'll set this equal to an arrow function. Now what we're going to do inside of this function is a try and a catch block here to go ahead and catch any potential errors that we may get, and we'll pass error as the param here. So let's go ahead and set up our error handling in the event that we have an error while creating our workout here. So we'll go ahead and output our error to our error handling div that we have in our markup. So we're going to say error, and we'll do message, and we'll say value, and we're going to set this equal to, and we're going to do some interpolation here. So we're going to say error, and then we'll set this equal to the error message that we're going to get inside of this catch block. So we'll do our money sign in our brackets, and we'll say error.message here. Okay. And then like we have done in many other spots within this project, we don't want to show this error forever. So we're going to use a set timeout here, and then we'll have our callback. And we want to execute this after 5 seconds so that our error does not stay here forever. And after 5 seconds, we can go ahead and set it back to null, and that way it will be removed. So we'll say error message dot value and set this back equal to false. Okay. So now let's go ahead and actually set up the functionality to send our data over to Supabase. So let's go ahead inside of our try block here. We're going to go ahead and create a new variable, and we want to go ahead and extract out of here the error that we may potentially get from our Supabase call here. Now to go ahead and use Supabase within this file, we have not imported it yet, so let's go ahead and do that above or below our UID. So we'll say import, we'll say, let's see here, we'll do Supabase, and we'll say from, and then we'll go ahead and look into our Supabase folder here and grab our init file. All right, and now we can have access to Supabase within our function here. So we're creating this new variable, and we're destructuring the error out of the response that we're going to be getting, and we're going to say we also want to do a async function here. So we're going to say async because we're going to be using async and await to go ahead and await the response from Supabase. So we'll say await here, and we'll do Supabase dot from, and remember what we want to go ahead and reference here is our workouts database. So we're going to say workouts, and then we want to go ahead and do the insert method here, which is going to be an array. And inside of this array, we're going to have our object, which is what we're going to be sending, or the columns that we want to go ahead and send to our database here. So we have our workout name, which is going to be equal to the workout, workout name dot value. Then we're going to have our workout type. So we're going to say workout type here. And this will be equal to the workout type dot value. And then finally we have our exercises array. So we're going to say exercises here. And we'll say this is equal to exercises dot value. Okay, and I think that's spelled right. There we go. Okay, so that's what we're going to be sending over to Supabase. So what we can do is put a semicolon here and save that. Now what we also want to do is if we get an error here, so if we say if, and this error right here is true, then we want to go ahead and throw the error into our catch block here. Okay, now if this is not true, we don't have an error, then we will at this point successfully went ahead and sent over our data to Supabase. So we want to go ahead and alert the user and let them know. So we'll go ahead and say status message dot value is going to be equal, we'll say success, we'll do workout created and exclamation point here. All right. Now what we also want to do is we need to go ahead and set these values right here of workout name, workout type, and exercises back to null or their initial state. So let's go ahead and copy the workout name here. So what we'll do right below this, we'll say workout name dot value is equal to null. Okay. And then we want to go ahead and get our workout type here. And remember, we set this equal to by default to select workout. So we'll go ahead and change this value back to select workout. Okay, and then finally we have our exercises dot value here, which is go ahead and copy this, and then we'll go ahead and paste it here, and we'll set this back to an empty array. Okay, now the last thing that we need to do in this function is do our timeout. So what I'll do is just copy this set timeout here and paste it right here, and then we'll just say instead of error message, we'll say status message. And that's going to be our creation function here. So now to use this, what we need to do is go ahead and return it here in our return. And then we need to go ahead and execute this function whenever we go ahead and submit our workout. So where we want to go is back up top here to our form, which is right here. And we want to go ahead and say at submit here. And we also want to prevent the default from happening. So we're going to say .prevent. And then all we want to do is call our create workout function. So before we test out creating a workout, we made one mistake when we imported Supabase here into our creation files. So Supabase right here should have a curly bracket around both sides, and that'll go ahead and resolve any potential errors that we're going to get when we go ahead and create our workout or we run that function. Okay, so let's go ahead and test this out now. So let's do a refresh here, and let's go ahead and record a workout. So we'll just say this is exercise number 1. We'll do strength training here, and we'll just say back. We'll do sets. We'll say we did 5, 12 reps, 135 pounds. Okay, so that's going to go ahead and be our workout. So let's go ahead and submit our workout here. And as you can see, we're going to get this error right here for new row violates RLS security policy for our database of workouts. So if you recall earlier on when we set up our database, we did enable RLS, which is going to prevent, or it's going to pretty much lock down our database. So what we need to do over on Supabase is create what they call policies that are going to allow us to create, delete, update, and just read all the data from our database. So let's go ahead and set those policies up. So within our project on Supabase, we're underneath the authentication tab, and we're going to be under the policy section here. So what we want to do is come over to this option of create a new policy here, which is going to prompt us with 2 different options. So we can create a policy from a template, or we can create a policy from scratch. Now to keep this very simple, we're going to go ahead and do create a policy from a template. So the first policy that we want to create is to enable read access to everyone regardless if they are authenticated or they are not. So we're going to go ahead and use this policy right here. So we'll go ahead and select use as template. we're going to go ahead and change the name here to make it very clear what we're doing. So we want to say enable, and we'll add read here. So it reads enable read access to all users. We'll go ahead and review this, and we'll go ahead and save this policy. And that's how you go ahead and create a policy here for your Supabase project. Now we need to go ahead and create a few more. So what we want to do now is we want to enable inserting data, updating data, and also deleting data for only authenticated users. So let's go ahead and set that up. So we're going to go ahead and select once again new policy here. We're going to do the policy from a template, and we want to go ahead and enable insert access for authenticated users only, which is a template that they have already created for us. So we'll go ahead and use this template here. We're going to go ahead and not change a thing here because it's already all set up and it's very clear what we're doing here. We're going to review this, and we're going to save this policy. Now let's go ahead and do this 2 more times. So we'll say new policy, we'll do from a template, and we're going to go ahead and use a template for insert access. We're going to go ahead and say use this template, and we'll change the policy here to update, and we'll change the allowed operation to update. Now what we also want to do is change it from using a with a check expression here to using a expression. So what we'll do is we'll copy this right here, we'll remove it, and we'll paste it up here. And then we're going to go ahead and review this, and we're going to save it. And then the final one that we want to go ahead and create here is for deleting. So we'll say new policy once more. We'll do policy from a template. We'll use the same template we have before. We'll say use, and then we'll change it from insert to delete here. And then we'll go ahead and change it to delete, and we'll paste in that same thing with auth.role, parentheses here, equals authenticated. And then we'll review this, and we'll save it. And that is going to be all the policies that we need here for our application. Now that we have our policies all set up, let's go ahead and attempt to go ahead and record or create another workout here. So let's go ahead and change our workout name here. Let's go ahead and add a workout type of cardio. We'll say we went on a run, and we'll do a distance of 1 mile. The duration took us 9 minutes here, so the pace would also be 9 minutes here. So if we go ahead and click on the record workout button now, we should see that everything is reverted back to its initial state, and we have the success message right here. So if we go over to our database, if we do a refresh here, we should now see that we have all that data that we just went ahead and submitted. So now that we have the ability to create a workout, we want to go ahead and output all those workouts here within our home file. So to get started here first, what we're going to do is we're going to reach out to Supabase, and we're going to grab all the data that we're going to be outputting here within our markup. So to begin, let's go ahead and import our ref to make our data reactive here within this file, and we're going to say from Vue, and we also want to import Supabase. And we'll go ahead and grab this from our Supabase folder, and then we're going to say our init file. Now, first thing here we need to do is create some data. So we'll go ahead and call the first piece of data, and this is going to be the data that we get from Supabase that we're going to be outputting here within our markup. So initially, we'll set this equal to a ref, which has a value of an empty array. Now, the next piece of data we're going to create here is called data loaded, and we'll set this equal to a Boolean value of false or null initially. And what we're going to do with this is we only want to display our markup once we have our data. So we'll use a VIF on here within our div to only show the content if this value is true. So let's go ahead and create a function to go ahead and grab our data from Supabase here. So what I'll do is I'll go show you the documentation here on how we can go ahead and grab all of our data from Supabase. So as you can see here, we have this option to read all of the rows. So what we want to do is we're going to await Supabase. We're going to go ahead and use the from method here to go ahead and select the database, which in our case will be workouts. And then to select all the data, what we want to do is use the select method and pass this asterisk in here to grab all of the rows. All right, so pretty simple. So let's go ahead and create a function here to do this, and we'll call this get data, and we'll set this equal to a async arrow function, and we'll go ahead and do this. Now let's go ahead and use a try catch here. Now we're not going to do any fancy error outputting here as we've done within our login, register, and create. All we're going to do is just console.warn if we have any errors. So if you want to go ahead and set up some more advanced error handling for this file, feel free to just go ahead and maybe copy what we've done in previous files, but I'm going to go ahead and keep it pretty simple here, and we'll just console.warn, and we'll say the error.message here. Now, inside of our try block here, let's go ahead and create a new data value here. And what we're going to do is destructure the response from Supabase. So we'll say data : and we want to grab the workouts. And we're also going to grab the error if we have one. And what we want to do here is set this equal to await, and we'll say Supabase. And we're going to say from here. And we want to go ahead and grab, let's get that out of the way. We'll say from our workouts database. And we want to go ahead and run the select method here. And then we'll pass in our quotes and then our asterisk here. So that's all we need to do. So we'll put a semicolon here. So what we also want to say here, if we have an error from Supabase, we want to go ahead and throw that error. All right. And then we want to go ahead and set our data.value equal to the workouts here. So we'll say, let's copy this here and we'll paste that. And then finally, if this is all true, then we have our data, so we can go ahead and set our data loaded to true here. So we'll go ahead and say data loaded dot value, and we'll set this equal to true. Now to go ahead and make sure this is all working, let's just go ahead and console.log here our data.value. Now this won't work initially because we aren't running this function when we are creating this file. So what we want to do is go ahead and run this function. So we'll say get data here. And then if we save this and head over to our application and we go over to this tab here and we go over to the home view and we go to inspect, we should now hopefully see that we have our data. So let's do a refresh here and we aren't seeing it, but there it is. So it took some time to come back. And if we open this up, we go inside of the target here, we can see that we have that exercise that we just, or I should say the workout that we just went ahead and created a few moments ago. Now with our data, we're going to output a card for each workout that we have within our database here. So that card is going to look like this here. So depending on what type of workout it is, we're going to go ahead and display a runner or a weight. We're going to have the workout type here, so cardio or strength training, and also the workout title. So let's work on implementing this into our application. So first off, what we want to do is we have no need for this console.log anymore. So we're going to go ahead and remove this. And we also need to access our data and data load it inside of our markup here. So what we want to do is return those here within our setup options. So we'll say data and also data load it. So let's populate our markup. So what we want to do is we only want to output this markup if our data loaded value is set to true. Now for the classes we want to apply to this wrapper div, we're going to say container. We want to apply some margin on the top, so we'll say empty and we'll do the value of 10. And we want to apply some padding on the left and right, so we'll say px and we'll set that value to 4. Now inside of here, we're going to have two children. We're going to have one element to go ahead and display if we don't have any workouts inside of our application, and then the other element will be to display our workout cards. So we'll work on the element here first for no data. So we'll go ahead and create a div here, and we only want to display this if our data.length is equal to 0. And we'll pass some classes on here, so we'll say with full, so we'll say w full. We'll display this as flex. Now for the flex direction, we're going to say a column, so we'll say flex col, and we want to align the items to the center, so we'll say item center here. Now inside of this div, we'll have an h1, and we'll pass it the class of text-2xl, and we'll have the value in here that says looks empty here, ... And then what we're going to do is we're going to provide a button that's going to direct the user to the creation page here. So we're going to create a router link here. And I can't spell. And we're going to go ahead and bind the two value or the two attribute here. And we're going to go ahead and take them to the route of create here. And then we'll pass the value of create workout. Now to save some time, we're going to go and style this router link as a button, which we've already done in a few different places. So what we can do is let's just go to our login page here, and we'll go ahead and copy the classes here for our button. So we'll go back to our home here, and we'll paste the class in like this. All right, so this is what we're going to output if we don't have any data within our database here. Now, if we do have data, we want to go ahead and output our workout cards. So let's go ahead and add a few line breaks here, and we'll have the comment of data, and then we'll create a div to go ahead and store our workout cards in. So what we're going to do is we're going to pass a v else on here. So what's going to happen here is if this div right here equates to false, That means we have data, so we want to go ahead and show our workout cards. Now to display our workout cards, we're going to be using the grid. So I'm going to pass the class here of grid, and we're going to be using a mobile first approach here. So initially we're going to have the grid set up to be one column. So we're going to say grid cols -1. And once we get to a small breakpoint here, we're going to go ahead and increase that by 1. So we'll say grid, and we'll do cols, and we'll set this to 2. And once we get to a medium breakpoint, we'll go up once again. We'll say grid cols, and we'll do 3. And you can see the pattern here. Once we get to large, we'll do grid, and we'll say cols, and set this to 4. And we also want to apply some gap here, and we'll say the value of 6 here. So what we want to do is we want to output a card for each workout that we have inside of our database. So we're going to go ahead and use a v-for loop to do that. Now we also want to take into consideration that when we click on click anywhere on the card, we want to be taken to the additional information on that particular workout. Now the easiest way to do this is to wrap our entire card in a router link. So we'll go ahead and create a router link here, and we'll add some classes. So what we want to do here is we're going to say we want to display this as flex. The flex direction is going to be a col, so we'll say flex col. We want to align all the items to the center, so we'll say item center. We want to have a background color on here of our custom color of BG, so we're going to say light gray, and we'll say padding around all sides will be 8. We want to add a shadow, which is going to be a medium shadow, and then we'll have a cursor of pointer and dash pointer here. Okay. Now for the destination we want to go ahead and take the user to, we don't have created just yet. So what we can do in the meantime to go ahead and avoid any errors on here is we can go ahead and set up the name here, but just take them to nowhere. And once we set up our additional Vue exercise route and file, we'll come back here and update this accordingly so that when they click on it, it takes them to the correct location. All right. So let's go ahead and iterate through our data here using a v-for loop to output a router link card for each one of our workouts. So we'll say v-for, and we'll go ahead and say for each workout, and we'll pass an index value here, and we'll say in data, and then we want to go ahead and assign a unique key here, which will be our index. So inside of our card, what we want to do first is we want to output an image based on the workout type the user has created. So we're going to either have cardio or strength training. So we'll go ahead and first look for the cardio image, or the cardio workout type for our image. So we'll say cardio, and we'll do image here. And we'll go ahead and output an image tag here. Now for the source, I'm going to go and copy and paste this in. So what we're going to do is look into our assets, and inside of here we have this images folder, and we're going to be using the running light green image here. So I'll say paste in here, and that's at the wrong location, and because I copied in the quotes as well, so let's go ahead and remove that. So the location, assets, images, running light green, and we'll apply some classes here. So we'll say class, and we want the height to be 24, so we'll say h-24, and then we'll do width, and we'll set that to auto. Now we only want to output this image if the workout type is equal to cardio. So we'll do a v-if, and we'll say workout.workout type is equal to cardio. All right. Now, if this isn't true and it is not equal to cardio, that means the workout type is going to be strength training. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and create another image tag here, and we'll do a comment, and we'll say strength training like this, and we'll do a little line break here to separate these two. And the location we want to go ahead and grab this from is going to be the same place, but we're going to grab the dumbbell light green image here. So I'm going to go and copy and paste this in. Now for the class, we'll say h-24 with auto, and we're going to do something very similar that we did with our data and no data. We're going to use a v-else here. So if this isn't true, then we'll show this. So we'll say v-else like that. Okay. Now the last two things we want to go ahead and display is going to be our little our little tag displaying the workout type, and then also we want to go ahead and display the workout name. So right below our image here, we'll go ahead and create a paragraph tag. And for the classes we're going to go ahead and apply here, we'll do margin top of 6. We'll do a padding on the top and bottom of 1, padding on the left and right of 3. We're going to say the text size will be small or extra small, so we'll say XS. The text color is going to be white, so we'll say text white. The background color is going to be our light green, so we'll say AT, we'll do light green here. And then we want to go ahead and add our box shadow. So we'll say shadow MD, and then a rounded of large to go ahead and round the corners here. Now inside of this paragraph tag, we want to go ahead and output the workout type here. So we'll do our curly brackets here, and we'll say workout, and we'll do the workout type here. And lastly, we want to go ahead and output our workout title. So we'll do another, this is going to be an H1, and we're going to do the class here of margin top 8. We're going to do margin bottom of 2. We're going to align the text to the center, and then we want to go ahead and say text is going to be the size of XL, and we're going to say the text color is going to be AT light green here, and then we're going to output our exercise name here. So we'll do our curly brackets, and we'll say workout and workout name like that. All right, so if we save this and we take a look at our browser here and we go over to this tab, if we do a refresh, we should now see we have our card right here. So if I were to go over to our database and we go to the table editor here and we remove this data that we have right now inside of our database, we delete the row and we say okay. And if we go refresh our application now, we shouldn't have any data, so we should see the no data div that we created here. So let's do a refresh, and as you can see, we aren't seeing that. Let's do another refresh here, and let's see if we have an error to see why we're not seeing that. So we are getting an error here, and the issue is, I believe you can see that it says no match for the name of create for our router link. So I believe we went ahead and didn't capitalize the C here inside of create. So if we do that and we save it, and we do a refresh here, we should now hopefully see our no data loaded div here, which we do, but you can see that the button right now is aligned here on the left, and I believe I may know why. So when we copied over our class structure here for our button, you can see that there's still this value of self start in here. So what that's doing is aligning the button to the start of the div. So if we remove that, it should apply this item center here to apply everything to the center of the div. If we go back over here, you can see that there we go. We are now outputted this content right here if we don't have any data inside of our database. Now the final page that we need to create is going to be to view the additional information on a particular workout. So one thing I do notice here is that we probably should rename this from view exercise to view workout here. I mislabeled that when I created this project. So we'll go ahead and say view workout here, and we also missed this here. So we'll say view workout like that. Now the first thing that we want to do in order to actually visit this file within our application is we need to go ahead and create a route within our router. So let's go ahead and do that. So over here within our router, what we want to do is we'll go below create here, and we'll go ahead and duplicate this object that contains the path, the name, and the component. So for the path here, which actually, let's go ahead and first go ahead and import this component. So we'll say import, and we'll do view workout, and we'll just go ahead and copy this right here so that way we can use it, and we'll just go ahead and update this component here to view workout. Now for the path, we're going to go ahead and say view dash workout here, and we want to go ahead and make this page dynamic, meaning we can go ahead and get any workout we want and display that information within our view workout file here. Now to do that, we're going to go ahead and use a unique parameter on this path here. So we're going to go ahead and define this param by saying colon, and we'll do workout ID here. All right. And then for the name of this, we want to go ahead and call this view, and we'll do dash workout like this. All right. So now with this created here inside of our router, we should be able to navigate to this route right here, or this path of view workout, and then pass a workout ID, and we should be able to see all the content within this file here. Now what we want to do to begin is retrieve the workout that the user has requested to see more information about. Now how we're going to do this is we have defined on this route or path this param of workout ID, which that ID will match the ID of the workout on our database. So we're going to use that parameter to make a call to Supabase to return only that workout. All right, now to begin, what we want to do is import a few things to make this happen. So we want to import ref here. We're going to say from view. We also want to import Supabase to go ahead and make our Supabase call, if I can spell. and we'll say from, and we'll do our Supabase folder, and then we have our init file here. And lastly, to use that parameter or gain access to that parameter here inside of this file, we need to import the use route here from Vue router. All right, now let's go ahead and create a few data values here. So we're going to keep this very similar to what we had inside of our home file. So we're going to say const data is going to equal a ref, and initially we'll set this to null. We're going to have our data value of data loaded, and we'll set this to a ref as well, and we'll have this set to null. So we're going to do the same thing here. We don't want to load this page until we have our data from Supabase. Now, we're also going to be doing some error handling here within this file. So I'm going to go and create some data for our error message, and we'll set this equal to a ref with the initial value of null as well. And then we'll have one for our status message if, we have an indication where we updated our workout or we have some sort of other confirmation. Okay, so we'll say status message like that. Okay. Now, the next thing we want to do is we need to create a reference to our route. So we want to go and create a new data value here, and we'll say const route is going to be equal to use route, and then we'll go ahead and declare that by saying our parentheses here. So we want to go ahead and grab the current ID of the route. So to do this, we're going to go ahead and say const current ID, and we'll set this equal to route.params, and the param we want to look for is what we define here inside of our router of workout ID. So we'll say route.params.workout ID. So now that we have this, we can go ahead and make a call to Supabase to go ahead and grab this workout based on the current ID inside of our path here. Now, this call is going to be very similar to the call we made inside of our home route here. So let's go ahead and just copy this function here to save some time. So we're going to call it the same thing. We'll say get data. Now, a few things you want to go ahead and change here. So we still want to say await Supabase from workouts. We want to select all the rows, but we only want to get a particular row. So we're going to say the EQ method here, and we want to go ahead and grab the ID, or we want to go ahead and grab the row that matches the ID, and we're going to go ahead and say the current ID that we declared here inside of this variable right here. Okay, so a few things I want to go ahead and change here is we're actually going to do error handling if we receive an error. So what we'll do is we're going to say error message dot value is equal to error. Let's see, error dot message here. All right. Now we don't want to show this forever, so we'll do a set timeout, and we'll go ahead and do our callback here, and then we'll say a value of 5 seconds or 5,000, and we'll go ahead and say error message dot value is equal to, we'll just do false like that. Now to go ahead and call this function when the route is created, we need to go ahead and declare it here. So we'll say get data like this. Now, if we go over to our home file here, you can see that we defined inside of our router here this to attribute that doesn't go anywhere yet. So now that we created this route of Vue exercise, we can go ahead and hook this up here. So let's go ahead and say the name where we want to go is going to be Vue. Actually, workout we change it to. So we'll say Vue workout here. And we want to go ahead and pass some params here. So we're going to say params, which will be an object. And we want to go ahead and say workout ID is going to equal, we want to say here, we'll do workout, and we'll say .id here. So now with this hooked up, if we go back over to our browser here, and you can see status messages. Okay, so what we can do to get rid of that for now is let's just go ahead and return status messages there, and that should go ahead and resolve that error. So now if we're back here inside of our application, if I click on this card right here, we should be taken to the Vue workout path, and we can see that we have an ID value of 6. So I believe we're not actually logging out to the console the actual data here. So what we can do is let's go ahead and say console.log, we'll say data.value here. And if we go ahead and go back to our browser and we do a refresh here, we should get all the information on this workout here. If we go to our console, and we're getting a value of null. So what did we do wrong here? Okay, so the reason why that's null is because this has not yet returned the data. So what we need to do is actually log us out of the console after we have set it here inside of our get data function. So if I go ahead and paste it here below data value.loaded, and we go back over to our browser here, and if we do a refresh, we should see now that when we come to this route here, we should be able to go inside of this proxy here, and inside of this target we have an array, which is going to be the data that we requested that matches the ID within our database over on Supabase. So let's begin to populate our markup. So what we first need to do is, because we're going to be using some of our data values here that we created within our markup, we need to return these here within our setup options. So let's go ahead and return data. We'll return data loaded as well as error message here. And it appears that I went ahead and spelled status wrong here. So let's go ahead and spell that right. And then I assume I spelled it wrong here when I declared it, which I did. All right, so that fixes that issue here. So let's head back up to our markup here, and we'll add a few classes to our div wrapper here. So we're going to go ahead and restrict the width of this div to the screen size of our small breakpoint. So we're going to say max width or max dash w dash screen and then dash sm. And we're going to center this by saying mx auto. And we're going to apply some padding to the left and right by saying px4, and then some padding on the top and bottom with py10 here. So let's go ahead and create the markup for our error handling or our status message. So I'll go ahead and give this a comment of app message here, and let's go ahead and create a div for this. Now we only want to show this if we have an error. So we're going to say if status message or if error message is true. And we'll apply some classes here to this. We'll say margin bottom of 10. We're going to say some padding around all sides of 4. We want to go ahead and round the corners, so we're going to say rounded MD. We'll pass a shadow here of shadow medium, and we'll give it a background color of our custom color of light gray. Now inside of here, we're going to have a couple paragraph tags, and the first one's going to have a class of text at light, or it's going to be dash light green here. And we want to go ahead and output our status message. So we're going to say status message like this. Okay. And then the next paragraph tags here is going to be for our error. So we're going to go ahead and give this a class of text. We'll do red and the value of 500. And then we're just going to go ahead and output our error message here. Now, before we continue on with our markup, I would like to explain a little bit more on how exactly our Vue workout page is set up here. So we have two sections. We have the top portion right here, which resembles our card that we have within our home view. And then below this in our second section, we have all the exercise information associated with that workout. Now, within our top section, what we also have, if we're logged in, we have two icons here. So we have a pencil icon and also a delete icon. When we go ahead and click on the pencil icon, it's going to change this page into the edit mode, which is going to convert all of the editable or updatable fields within our workout to inputs here. So you can see we have our title, and then we have all the exercise information, which is converted into the same layout or view that we have when we go ahead and create our workout. All right. Now, to go ahead and account for this within our markup, we need to go ahead and create a few things within our setup option. Now, to check and see whether or not a user is logged in, we already have access to this within our store. So all we need to do is import our store here into our file. And this is going to be located within our store folder. And then we have our index file. And then we need to go ahead and import our computed here. So what we'll do is we'll create a new data value, call this user, and we'll set it equal to a computed value here. And then we'll go ahead and return the store.state.user here. All right. Now what we also need to do is create a edit mode value. So we'll go ahead and say const edit equals a new ref, and we'll set this to null. So we want to go ahead and create a function that's going to go ahead and toggle this from true to false to go ahead and enable and disable edit mode. So all we'll do is we'll create a function called edit mode and set this equal to a arrow function. And we're going to say edit.value is going to equal the opposite of what edit.value currently is. So this will be like a toggle switch. Now what we want to do to actually utilize this function and our new data values is we need to return them here within our setup option. So we'll return edit mode, and then also we had the user. Now continuing on with our markup, to save some space, let's go ahead and close this div for our error and our status message, and let's do a few line breaks and create a new div. Now we only want to show this div if our data loaded value is equal to true. Now what we want to create first here is going to be our general workout information. If we go over to the finished version, I'm referring to this little section right here. All right, so we'll go ahead and create a comment here, and we'll just say general workout info. And let's go ahead and create a div to hold all of this. So the classes you want to apply here are going to be display flex. We're going to do a flex direction of a column. We're going to say items, and we'll do center. We're going to do padding around all sides of 8. We want to round the corners here, so we're going to say rounded MD. And we want to apply a shadow, so we'll say shadow MD. And we want to pass a background color of BG light gray here. And lastly, we want to position this div relative. So we'll say relative like that. Now, within this div, we're going to have a few things. So the first item I want to go ahead and create, or items, are going to be our edit and our delete icons. Now, let's go ahead and create a div to hold these. So we only want to output these icons if our user is logged in. So we're going to say vif, and we're going to make sure that the user has value. If it's false, then we won't show this. All right. So the classes we want to apply to the wrapper of our user and of our edit and our delete icons are going to be display flex. Now we want to go ahead and position these absolute. So we'll say absolute here, and we want to position these left 2, and let's spell that right, and then top 2. And we want to apply some gap here by saying gap x-2. Now within here, we're going to have our icons. So we'll store these in a div, and we'll apply some classes here. So we're going to say h-7, w-7 for the width. We want to say round it full to make these circles. Then we want to pass display flex. We're going to say justify to the center, and we want to say items center here. And let's spell that right. And then we're going to do a cursor of pointer. And then we'll do a line break here to add some readability. And then we're going to give it a background color of our light green that we created. So we'll say AT light green here. And then we're going to give it a shadow of large and LG here. Okay. Now, when we click on this, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and toggle our edit mode, because this is going to be the icon for our edit. So when we do our click here, we'll say edit mode we want to run. All right. Now within this div, we want to have our pencil icon. So we'll go ahead and create an image tag here, and we'll go ahead and put that ending div tag here to the next line. So where we want to go ahead and grab this image from is, I'll copy and paste it in, but it's going to be inside of our assets folder, and then we have an image folder, and then we have a pencil light icon. So the class that we want to add to here is going to be a height value of h-3.5, and we're going to say width set to auto. Now what we can do is we can go ahead and duplicate this div right here and change a few things. So we haven't yet created a function to delete the particular workout. So we can go ahead and remove this for now. And once you create that function, we'll go ahead and re-add it. And then all we want to do is change this from pencil light to trash light here. All right. And that's going to go ahead and do it for our edit and our delete icons here. So below this, we're going to have either our cardio image or our strength training image to go ahead and indicate which type of workout this is. So what we'll do here is we'll add an image tag. And what we want to do is for the source, once again, I'm just going to copy and paste this in to save some time. So we're going to go back to the same folder, and we're going to say the running light green image, and we'll add a class here of h-24, and we'll say width, set that to auto. Now we only want to show this class if the workout type is equal to cardio. Now, one thing I do want to do is, because this value right here returned from Supabase is an array, we want to go ahead and only get the first workout of that array, and it's going to make doing our population of our markup a lot more cleaner and a little easier. So what we're going to do here is we're going to set the data that a value equal to workouts, and we want that first array, or that first value inside of that array. So we're going to pass 0 in here. Okay, so now what we can say is we can do vif, and we're going to say data dot workout type is equal to, and we'll say cardio here. All right, and then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and duplicate this down here for our strength training, and we can just say v else here, and then instead of outputting the running light green, we can go ahead and output our strength training or our dumbbell, which is going to be in the same folder as the running one. Okay, and then what we also want to do is below this we're going to have our tags. So we'll go ahead and create a span, and we'll pass a few classes here. So we're going to say margin top of 6 for some separation, a padding on the top and bottom of 1.5, a padding on the left and right of 5. We're going to say text extra small. We're going to say text color of white. We're going to change the background color here to the color of AT light green. And for some readability, I'll skip a line here. And we want to pass the rounded LG to round the corners here. And we're going to do a shadow of medium here. Now inside of here, we want to go ahead and output the data.workout type. All right. And lastly here within this general information section, we want to go ahead and output the title here. Now remember, if it's edit mode, we want to go ahead and output a input value with the title so that way we can go ahead and update it later on. So let's go ahead and create a new div, and we're going to pass some classes here of w full and then margin top of 6. So inside of here, we want to go ahead and have our input in the case that it's in edit mode or the edit mode is enabled. So we'll create our input here with a type of text, and we'll pass some classes here of padding 2. We're going to say width full. We're going to say text gray dash 500, and focus, we're going to go ahead and remove the outline. So we'll say outline and set this to none. Now what we also want to do is we need to put a vif condition on here to only show this and what's going on. So we want to say vif, not for. We want to say vif and only if, why is it being a pain here, if edit is true. All right, and then we want to hook up a v model here to the current value of our title. So we'll do a v model, and we'll say data.workout name. Okay. Now, in the event that edit mode isn't true, we want to just go ahead and output the title inside of an h1. So we'll say h1 here, and we'll do a v-else clause, and we'll add some classes here. So we will say text at dash light green, and we want to set the text size to 2XL, and we want to align the text to the center here. And then what we'll do is we'll output the data.workout name, and that should go ahead and do it for the general section of our Vue workout file. So if we take a look at what we have so far, which is going to be our top portion here, which is the general workout information, we have our 2 icons here in the top left hand corner. We have our image for the workout type, which in our case for this workout it's cardio. We have our tag, which is cardio, and then we have the workout name. Now, what should happen when we click on this pencil icon, since we went ahead and set this up with our function of edit mode, and we also set up this title here, or the name, to convert to an input when the edit mode is active, this should be converted to an input here. So let's go ahead and test this out, and if we click on this, you can see that it does convert to an input, where I can go ahead and say exercise, and we'll just do new workout or something like that. And then if we go ahead and toggle back out of edit mode, you should see now that the new title here is going to be exercise new workout. So we now have the ability to update our workout title here within our Vue workout page. Now, continuing on with our markup, we need to output all the exercise information for our particular workout. So let's go ahead and start off by collapsing our div for the general workout information and do a few line breaks here and add a new comment for our exercises. And then let's do a new div here, and we'll add some classes here initially. So what we want to do is we're going to have a margin top of 10. We're going to do a padding value of 8. We want to round the corners here, so we're going to say rounded MD. We want to display this as flex, and we want the flex direction to be a column, so we'll say flex col. We want the items to be aligned to the center. We want the background color, and we'll do a line break here for some readability. We'll change this to light gray, and then we'll apply a shadow medium here. So within this div, we need to go ahead and detect which type of workout it is and output the correct HTML or markup. So let's go ahead and we'll create a comment here for strength training. And we'll just go back and uncapitalize that. And we'll create a new div. And we only want to output this div here, not a v4. We'll say v-if, only if the data.workout type is equal to, we want to say strength. Okay, so the classes we want to apply here are going to be flex. We want the flex direction to be a column, and we want to apply some gap here on the y-axis of 4, and then we want to say width full, so we'll say w full. Now within here, we want to go ahead and iterate through all of the exercises that we have within our database for this particular workout. So what we're going to do is a v-for loop. So we'll create another div, and we will say apply some classes of flex. We'll do flex col here initially for mobile, because we're going to do a mobile first approach. We want to apply some gap on the x-axis of 6 and some gap on the y-axis of 2, and then we'll position this relative. And what we also want to do is once we get to a small breakpoint here, we'll convert this from a flex column to a flex row. All right. And then we'll do our v-for loop here through our data.exercise data. So we will go and create a v-for here, and we will say for each item, and we'll pass an index value here, and we're going to say in our data.exercises. Okay, and then what we also need to do to avoid an error here is apply a unique key, which is why we have created an index on this v-for loop, and we'll just pass a key as the index here. Now inside of here, we need to go ahead and output our 4 inputs or our 4 data values for each particular workout type. So in our case, we have strength here, so we're going to have the exercise name, the sets, the reps, and also the weight. So let's go ahead and create the markup for this. Now once we create one, the markup for the additional 3 will pretty much be the same with a few minor changes. So let's go ahead and create a div here, and we're going to say a class, and we'll do flex. Now for this first one, we're going to say the class of flex2, which I did go ahead and set up within the configuration here. So you can see we have flex1 and flex2. That's not usually there by default. And then we want to apply the flex direction here of a column, and we're going to say at the median breakpoint, we want to go ahead and apply a width of 1 divided by 3 to take up 1/3 of the space here within this div. Okay, so now let's go ahead and open this up, and what we'll do is we'll create our label here. So this is going to be a very similar structure to our creation page for how we went ahead and set up the inputs. Okay, so we're going to say for exercise name here, dash name, and we'll apply some classes, which will be margin bottom of 1. We're going to say text sm, and we'll change the text color here to our at-light, and we'll do green. Now for the label value, we'll change this to exercise. Okay, and then below this, we're going to have either an input, or we're going to go ahead and just simply output the actual exercise name, whether or not, or we're going to need to determine if edit mode is enabled. If it is, we'll show our input. If it's not, we'll just go ahead and show the exercise name. So we'll create an input here with a type of text, and we want to do a v-if on here, and we only want to show this if edit is true. Then we'll apply some classes, which will be padding around all sides of 2. We're going to say width full. We're going to apply the text color of gray-500, and we're going to apply a focus state here and remove the outline. And we'll say outline to none. Then what we also want to do to have the ability to populate the current exercise name here and also be able to change it is we need to do a v-model here for some two-way binding, and we're going to say item.exercise. Okay. And then if this is not true, if edit mode is not enabled, then we want to apply, or we want to output a paragraph tag here, and we'll say v-else, and we'll just say our brackets here, and do item.exercise. All right. And that should be the general structure here we're going to create. So what we can do is actually collapse this, and I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this one time and make the proper changes for the additional two, and then copy those down, because we're going to change a few things up here on the rest of these three that we need to create. So what we first want to do here is we want to remove flex 2 and change this to flex 1, and we don't want to apply this medium breakpoint class here of width of 1 divided by 3 on the additional 3. Now I believe other than that, everything else should be the same here. So what we'll do is the next one we want to output here is going to be for our sets. So we'll change the for here and we'll say sets, and we'll change the value here for the label to sets. And we want to keep the edit mode here. We're going to keep all the classes and type the same, but we'll go ahead and change this right here to sets. And I believe we forgot an ID here to go ahead and make this label work properly. So we'll add an ID here of sets on here. And then within our first one, we need to do the same thing. So we'll say an ID, and we'll change or copy this right here and apply an ID to this input. So that way, if you click on the label, it'll take you into this input here. All right. So let's collapse this up here. And I believe we need to just go ahead and change this right here to sets, and that should be it. So let's go ahead and duplicate this down 2 more times. So 1, 2, and let's go ahead and make the appropriate copy updates here. So we'll collapse this, and we'll collapse this one, and then we'll open up this here. And then the next one we want to go ahead and output is going to be for our reps. So what we'll do here is we'll change this to reps. We'll go ahead and change this to reps as well. And we'll go ahead and change it here, and we'll say reps. Oh, we got to change the ID here as well, reps. And then finally reps, I believe. Okay, and there we go. And then the last one here is going to be for our weight. So we'll go ahead and change this to weight. Spelled that wrong. And we'll change this to weight. And we'll just capitalize this, and we'll add the parentheses here for pounds. So we'll say lbs. And then let's change the ID here to weight. And we'll just copy this here and paste it here and paste it here. And that should go ahead and do it for all of our inputs here. Now what we want to do outside of this v-for loop is we want the user to be able to add an exercise to this workout if they choose. So actually, before we do that, I am missing one thing. So we need to go ahead and add the image here to delete this if they choose. So we'll go ahead and add our image tag here. Now the source, I'm going to go and copy this and paste this in, and it's going to be in our same location we have done for all of our images here. We're going to be using this trash light green image again, and we only want to show this if the edit mode is enabled here, because they don't want to just delete or see a delete icon if they're viewing their exercise or viewing their workout. All right, and then we'll apply some classes here. So we're going to say absolute for the position. We want to give it a height value of the height class of h-4. We're going to say width auto, and we're going to apply the left to negative. We'll say minus left -5, and then a cursor pointer. Okay, and that should do it. Now, getting back to what I was saying, we want to have the ability to add a new exercise here to our workout. So we want to go ahead and create a button. Now we've already created this button many times, so what I'm going to do is just copy and paste in the styling here for this. So what I'll do is we'll collapse our v-for loop here. So you don't want to do this inside of the v-for loop, you want to do it inside of this div that we have for our strength training. So we'll create a button. We're going to give it the type of button, and we want to go ahead and apply our classes that we've used throughout the whole project for our buttons here. So I'll go ahead and paste this in like that. Okay, and then for the value inside of the button, we're going to say add exercise here. All right, and that should do it for our strength training here. Now, before we create our cardio markup, I do want to alter one thing here. So within our button that I pasted in the styling for, we need to update this border color from border white to our AT light green color. All right, and that should do it. Now for our cardio markup, it's going to be very similar to the markup we have here for our strength training input. So what I'll do is we'll just duplicate this down here, and we'll do a few line breaks. And to save some space and make things a little bit easier to read, let's go ahead and collapse this div here. Now for the comment, let's update this to cardio, and we no longer need to do a VIF check here. What we'll do is instead a VL. So if this is not equal to strength training, then we'll output this div here with our cardio inputs. All right, and we don't need to change anything with the button, but what we do need to change is some of the input values here. All right, so first off, we're no longer outputting the exercise name. We are now outputting the cardio type. So we'll say cardio type, and we'll change it here for the for attribute as well as our ID. And then for the label value, we'll just pass it as type here. So what we also need to do is for the V model and where we're outputting it here in the paragraph tag, this also should be cardio and not capital, cardio type like this. Now there's one issue that we need to update here with this input. So if you recall, when we are creating a cardio workout, we have the cardio type as a dropdown. So we don't want to change that here when we're editing it. So we need to update this from a regular input to a select input. So we'll remove this trailing slash here and then go ahead and close off our select option or select tag. So what we need to do is if we go back over to our create file here, we actually already created all the options that we need to pass for this input or this select dropdown. So we'll copy and paste these in here like that to make things easier and not have to repeat ourselves here. So there we go. That is all the changes we need to make here for our first input. Now the next one and the following ones are going to be a lot more simpler. We just need to go ahead and update the for attributes here, the value, and then the V model and the outputted paragraph tag here. So the next one we need to output is going to be for our distance. So we'll change sets here and we'll do distance, and let's go ahead and capitalize the D here. And then for the V model here, we'll just go ahead and grab both these and say distance. All right, and there we go. Now moving on here, let's go ahead and do the next one, which is going to be for our duration. So we'll highlight all of this stuff here and we'll say duration like that, and then we'll just capitalize this here. And then the last one we need to do is going to be for the pace. So we'll highlight weight here and we'll go ahead and grab all of that and we'll just say pace here, and we'll remove this here and change this to a capital P, and I believe that should go ahead and do it for our cardio markup here. Now the last bit of markup that we need to create is if we want to submit or update the changes we made to a workout to reflect on our database. So we need a button to handle that. So what I'll do here is inside of our strength training div, I'll go ahead and copy this button tag here, and I'll go ahead and collapse this, and we'll collapse our exercises div here. And outside of our exercises div, we'll do a few line breaks and we'll add a new comment here for update, and we'll paste in this button. Now a few changes I do want to make here is we're going to add some margin top to the top of this button to separate it from our exercises div here. And we want to change the type here to submit, and we also want to go ahead and only display this if our edit mode is enabled here. And lastly, let's update the button text here to say update, and let's spell this right. We'll say update workout. Now one quick change that we need to make within our markup here is for our add exercise button. Now we don't want to show this button all the time when a user is just viewing this workout. We only want to show it if they are editing their workout. So let's add a VIF here and only show this if edit mode is true, and then we'll copy this here, and we also need to add it to our cardio inputs. So we'll open this up and we'll go to our button, and then we'll paste this in here as well. Now to ensure that both types of workouts that we are allowing to create are formatted properly, I went ahead and added a strength training workout here to our database. So let's go ahead and test out both of these to make sure that both workout types are formatted correctly. So let's start with cardio here. So if we click on this, we have our top portion that we already created, and here is a new portion that we just added. So when we're viewing our workout here, you can see that it's the cardio type. So we have the type, which is a run, the distance, which is supposed to be 1 mile, the duration is 9 minutes, and also the pace is 9 minutes. So if we click on edit here, we should now be able to edit this. So you can see we have our drop down menu to select the different type of cardio that we have. We can update the distance, the duration, and also the pace here. Now, if we go back to our home page, if we go to our workout type of strength training here, we should see that we have a very similar layout here, except this time we have the different labels here. So we have our exercise name, the sets, the reps, and the weight. And if we click on edit here, we should be able to edit all these values as well. So let's begin to implement the rest of the functionality here into our Vue workout page, starting with the ability to delete a workout. Now, to handle this, we need to create a function, and we'll call this delete workout. And we'll set this equal to a sync arrow function. And then inside of here, we'll have our try and our catch. And we'll go ahead and catch the error here. And what we'll do with the error is we'll output it to our error handling here. So we'll have our error message data value, and we'll go ahead and set the value here, and we'll use some interpolation, and we're going to say error, and then we'll output the specific error message that we have. So we'll say error dot message here. Now we don't want to show this error forever, so we'll do our set timeout as we've done many times within this project, and we'll have our arrow function here, and we'll execute this after 5 seconds. So we'll say 5,000, and then we will set the error message dot value back to false. Okay. Now, to go ahead and delete our specific workout, we need to reach out to Supabase and say, hey, we want to delete this workout that contains this specific ID, which we're storing right here inside of this const of current ID. So what we'll do is we'll create a new variable here, and we're going to destructure the response we get from Supabase, and we want to go ahead and grab the error if we have one. And then we want to await Supabase here. And we're going to go ahead and say from, and we want to use our workouts database. So we'll say workouts here. And then we want to call the delete method. Now we just can't leave it here. We need to go ahead and delete the specific row that matches this ID right here. And we've already done this within this file. We're going to use the EQ method here. And we want to go ahead and pass the ID for the first value here. And then we're going to go ahead and say delete the row that matches this current ID that we have right here. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, if we have an error, so we'll say if error, then we want to throw the error. All right, and now the last thing that we want to do is, because once we delete this workout, we have no need to stay on this page, so we want to go ahead and push the user to the home page here. Now, we just don't have access to do this within our file right now using the composition API. We need to go ahead and import the router into this file. So we have the route, but we don't have access to the actual router. So we need to import use router here from Vue router. And then we want to go ahead and create a new data value here, and we'll call this router. And we'll set this equal to use router here. And we'll go ahead and initiate that with our parentheses here. So now within our function, what we can do is we can say router dot push, and we want to go ahead and push them to the route named home here, and we should capitalize this. All right. Now the last thing we need to do here is we need to return to this function so we can use it within our markup. And then we want to go ahead and call this function within our delete icon here within our general information. So if we go scroll back up here, we have this div, which is going to contain our icons here. So the first one is our edit mode, and the next one we want to go ahead and call it on is this div right here. So we're going to say at click, and then we're going to go ahead and call our delete workout function. So if we set everything up right, we should now be able to delete this exercise by clicking on this trash can here. So let's go ahead and do this. And if we delete it, you can see we get redirected back to the home page here, and we no longer have our workout here of string training visible within our home page. Now next, we're going to implement the ability to add an exercise to our workout if a user is editing that particular workout. So we've already created the logic in our project to add an exercise to a workout within our create file here. So what we'll do is we're going to go over to this file, and we're just going to copy this function and make a few changes to make it work here within this file. All right, so first off, we don't want to just go ahead and say workout type value. We're going to say data.value.workout type here instead, and we'll remove this additional value here within our if condition. Now also, instead of just pushing to exercises.value, we want to say data.value.exercises here. All right, and then we'll go ahead and change this down here as well. Okay, and we'll remove this. Now, since we're going to be creating a unique ID here, we need to import that here within this file. So let's go back up here to the top, and we will say import, and we'll do UID, and we'll say from UID here. All right, and if we come back down to here, what we want to do now is we need to return this function here within our return statement. So we'll do this and we'll save it, and it's going to reformat that a little bit better since it's getting longer. And then all we want to do is go back up here to our markup, and let's go and collapse this. Oops, the wrong one. We'll collapse this. Now within our strength training here and our cardio, we have this button here to go ahead and add an exercise. So what we can do is we can say add click here, and we can do our add exercise. And then the same thing here for the cardio, we will say add click, and we want to add exercise. So now if we enable edit mode within our workout here, we should now be able to add additional exercises to our workout here. So if I click the button, you can see that we're now able to add those. Now that we can add an exercise to our workout, we want to also be able to delete an exercise. And once again, we already have this logic created within our creation file here within our application. So what we're going to do is go over to our create file here, and we're going to copy this function for deleting an exercise. And then we'll paste it here right below this comment. Now, once again, as we did with our add exercise, you want to go ahead and update the value here within our function. So instead of saying exercises.value, we're going to say data.value.exercises, and we'll remove this value here. And then what I'll do is we'll just copy this here, and we're going to go ahead and remove every instance that we have where we call the old value. So we'll go ahead and remove value here, and we'll also remove value here. And that should go ahead and update our function. So now to use this, what we want to do is go ahead and return it down here in our return statement. And then within our markup, we want to go ahead and call this function. So where we're going to call this is we got to go back here into our strength training and our cardio divs. And we're going to go into the div where we're doing a v-for loop. And we have this image of a trash icon here. So what we want to do is when we click on this, you want to go ahead and run that function. And don't forget, we need to pass the ID here. So we're going to say item.id like this. And then we'll copy this here, and we'll go into our cardio div, and we'll do the same thing here for this image as well. So if we enable edit mode here now, we should be able to delete an exercise if we choose to. But remember, we also have an if check here that says if we only have one exercise, we can't remove it. So let's go ahead and test to make sure everything is working properly. So right now we only have one exercise within this workout, so I shouldn't be able to delete it. So if we click on the trash icon here, you can see we're going to get our error message here that says you cannot remove it because we need to have at least one exercise. So let's go ahead and add a new one here, and we'll say we want to do a walk. We'll say 1 mile. We'll say 20 minutes here, and then a pace of 20 minutes as well. So now if we unedit this, and let's say we want to go ahead and remove our run, we should be able to do so. So if I click on the trash here, you can see we can now remove an exercise from our workout. So although it visually appears that we're able to make updates to our workout, we are not saving those changes. If we did a refresh to any updates that we made within our application on this specific page, we would see that none of those changes are saved. So what we need to do is create a function that's going to send over the newly updated data to our database over on Supabase. So let's create a function here, and we'll call this update, and we'll set this equal to an async arrow function. And inside of here, we're going to have a try and a catch block. And we're going to go ahead and catch the error. And what we're going to do is we're going to output the error to our error and our status handling div. So we're going to say error message dot value, and we're going to use some interpolation here, and we're going to say error, and then we'll output the error dot message here. Okay, and then we're going to do a set timeout to remove the error after a certain amount of time. So we'll have our arrow function here, and then we'll execute this timeout after 5 seconds. So we'll pass a value of 5,000, and then in here all we want to do is say error message dot value and set this equal to false. All right, now inside of our try block here, we're going to go ahead and create a new data value, and we're going to destructure the response that we get from Supabase, and we want to go ahead and grab the error out of there, and we'll set this equal to await Supabase here, and we're going to say from, and we want to go ahead and grab the workouts database, and we're going to say the update method here. Now what we want to pass is going to be the workout name, which will be equal to the data.value.workout name. And we also want to send over the newly updated exercises. So we'll say exercises and do data.value.exercises here. All right. And we also want to go ahead and tack on the .eq method here to update that specific row that matches the ID that we're going to pass it for this workout. So we'll say ID, and then we have the data value here of current ID, which is storing the workout ID. All right. Now, after this, what we want to do is we need to check to make sure we have no error. So if we say if error is true, then we'll throw the error. All right. Now, if we don't have an error, that means we have made our updates to our workout successfully. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn off edit mode, because at this point in time, if they are making an update, then the edit mode would be true. So we'll just say edit.value is equal to false here. Now we could also call our function, but we'll just go ahead and set it here. It's going to be the same amount of code. So we'll save this, and then we want to go ahead and set a message. So we're going to say status message dot value is going to equal success, and we'll say workout updated. Okay, and then we also want to do a set timeout here because we don't want to show this forever. So we'll do our callback, and we'll say execute this after 5 seconds here. And then inside of here, we'll just say status message dot value is equal to false here. Okay, so that'll be our function. So as always, to use this, let's go ahead and return it here. And then let's go back up to our markup here, and we need to go ahead and execute this function each time we click on the update button here. So what we'll do is come to our button right here. Now I made the mistake here of putting this type to submit. We can actually change this to button. We're not going to be using a form validation here. And we'll go ahead and call the function of update. So if we enable edit mode here and make some updates, we should now be able to save and update our workout successfully here. So let's go ahead and start off by changing the title here, or the name. We'll say new workout, and let's add an additional exercise here. So we'll say we did a walk. The distance was a mile, the duration was 20, and the pace was also 20 as well. So now if we click on update workout, we should have our function fire where the edit mode is turned off, and it sends our newly updated data to Supabase. So let's go ahead and try this out. So let's click on update here. And as you can see, we get this message saying success workout has been updated. So if we do a refresh, we should still be able to see the updates that we made here on this page. So if we refresh, you can see that now we have our new workout title still here, and we also have our newly added exercise of a walk. Now, currently when navigating from page to page within our application, the title here inside of the browser tab is not going to update. So, for example, if we go to the view workout, it still says active tracker. And if we go to the create page or route, it still says active tracker here. Now, within our finished application here, we have these titles update for the route that you're currently on. So right now we're on the home route, so it says home. And then if we're on the view workout route, it says view workout, and etc. So let's go ahead and implement that here into our project. So let's navigate into our router folder here and open up our index.js. And what we need to do to implement a title inside of our browser tab is we want to add a new object to each one of our routes here of meta. And then we'll add a title value here, and we want to go ahead and pass the title that we want to display inside of our browser tab. So for example, we're on the home route here, so we'll give this a title of home. And now we need to go ahead and do this for every single route that we have. So we'll have our login here, so this will be login, and then we'll have our register. So we'll change this to register. Then we have create here, so we'll change this to create. And then finally we have our view workout. So we'll go ahead and change this to view workout here. Now what we also need to do, because right now this will not add the title to the browser tab, we need to do what they call a router before each method here. So you can see here I have some comments. So what we'll do here is we'll change the document titles. So we'll do a router dot before each, and we want to pass a few params here. So we're going to say to, from, and then next. And then we'll have our callback here. All right. Now what we want to do here is go ahead and target the document.title, and we're going to set this equal to and let's go ahead and say equal to, then our interpolation here. And we want to go ahead and grab, so we're going to say to, so the route we're going to, which is why we have this to param right here. And we want to grab the meta object on that route, which we just created. So we'll say meta, and then we want to grab the title value. All right. And then we're going to go ahead and dynamically add this active tracker value to the end of each one of our routes. Now we can go ahead and put a semicolon here, and then we want to go ahead and proceed to the route by calling next here. So if we save this and we go over to our project and we do a refresh here, so we're getting to is not defined, from is not defined, which let me see why that would be to, oh, we need to actually wrap this here. So it didn't do it automatically for us. So let's go ahead and add an additional parenthesis around here, and if we save that, that should go ahead and resolve that error. So now you can see that when we're on the create route, we have it say create and then active tracker, and if we go to home, it says home, and if we go to view workout, it says view workout there in the title of our browser tab. Now currently we're logged in and we should have access to all routes within our application, but what happens if we're not logged in and we try to go to, for example, this create route right here? What's going to happen? So let's go ahead and log out, and as you can see, we're redirected back here to the home page. Now if we go ahead and try to navigate to our create page, even though we don't necessarily have it within our navigation here, we can still access this route here. All right. Now, even though if we're not logged in and we try to go ahead and create an exercise, we're going to go ahead and get an error here. So if I just enter some information here and try to record it, you can see that we're going to get this error because we don't have access to it since we're not authenticated here. But I think it'd be better practice to not even allow the user to get to this page to even perform a operation to record a workout. So what we want to do is implement what they call a route guard. Now to implement this, we will be accessing Supabase from within our router file here. So we're going to need to import it here at the very top. So we'll say Supabase, and we'll grab that from our Supabase folder. And we'll grab that init file. Okay. Now what we need to do is inside of our meta object here, we need to go ahead and add a auth value here and set it to either true or false. So if we set it to true, that means we want the route to be protected by authentication. Now, if we set it to false, that means anybody can visit this path. So for our home page here, we'll set this value to false. Now, the only page that we want to prevent a user from getting to within our application is going to be the creation page here. So for login, we can pass false. For register, we can pass false. And then for the creation route here, we'll paste this in, but we'll change this value to true. And then for the view workout here, we'll change this to false. All right. So now down here below our comment, we have for route guard for auth routes. Let's go ahead and create another router before each method here. And inside of here, we're going to pass to, from, and then next. And then we'll have our callback. So first off, what we want to do each time before we go to a new route, we want to go ahead and see if the user is logged in or not. So how we're going to do this is by using Supabase. So we're going to create a new data variable here called user, and set this equal to Supabase. So I should probably do equals here. We'll do Supabase.auth.user. Now, if a user is logged in, this will return back the user, making this data value true. Now, if it doesn't have the user, it'll make this data value false, okay? And we're going to use this later on within our check when we're navigating to a new page or route. So what we want to do, first off, is we want to check if the route we're going to requires authentication. So what we'll do here is say to.matched, and we'll do the sum method here, and we want to pass a param of res here. And then we'll have our callback, and what we're checking for to see if the response.meta.auth value is true. Now, if this is true, what this means is that this route requires authentication. So now what we want to do is, first off, we need to check if the user is logged in or not. So we're going to say if user, that means they're logged in. So we can go ahead and proceed them to the route, and then we'll return from here. We'll return out of the function. Now, if they're not logged in, what we'll do is we need to redirect them back to the login page to log in, so that way they can log in and then they can access that creation route here. So we'll say next, and we can go ahead and pass inside of here the location we want to go ahead and send them to. So in our case, we want to send them to the login page here, and then we'll return out of here. Now, in the event that this is not true and the route doesn't require authentication, we just simply want to go ahead and pass them to that route they're trying to go to. All right, and that is going to be our router guard. Now back here in our application, if we go ahead and try to access the create route while we're not logged in, the router guard should pick up and see that we're not logged in and we're trying to access a route that is protected by authentication, and it should shoot us to our login page. So if we go ahead and type in create here, you can see that it shoots us to our login page, so that way we can log in and then access that authenticated route. So our application is completed. Now the last thing that we want to do is deploy it to Heroku here. So I'm here logged into my account on all the apps that I currently have, and we want to go ahead and create a new app here. And we'll go ahead and call this name, or the app name, Active Tracker YT here, and we'll go ahead and leave the region as United States, and we're going to go ahead and create our app here. Now to deploy our application, we're going to be using the Heroku CLI here. All right, so we have a few steps that we need to do in order to get our application hosted or pushed to Heroku here. Now before we go ahead and do any of these things right here, we need to go back to our repository or our project and open up a new terminal. And we want to go ahead and build our project here. And what I mean by that is there's a command that we can run within Vue called npm run build. And this is what we're going to be deploying to Heroku. So you can see it's going to build our application for production, and we're going to then push this to Heroku. Okay, our build has been completed, and we can see this because now we have a new folder here inside of our project called dist, which has our production built ready application. Okay, so what we also need to do is I'm going to drag this folder in from the finished repository. It's a static.json file that Heroku is going to need in order to know where to look for our deployed application. Okay, so I'm not going to go get into this too much, just know we need this in order to deploy it to Heroku. All right, so we'll go ahead and close out of here. So now if we head back over to Heroku, before we can begin to log in and create a new Git repository, we need to head over to the settings and we need to add a new build pack here. Now this build pack is going to be the Heroku build pack static. So we're going to save this, and next time we deploy, this build pack configuration will be used within our Heroku deployment. All right, so now if we head back over to deploy, we can log in with Heroku first here. So let's go ahead and copy this, and inside our terminal, we're going to go ahead and log in with Heroku. So it says to log in, press any key. So we'll go ahead and do that, and it should prompt us here to the browser to go ahead and log in. And there we go. So we're now logged in. We can go ahead and close out of here. And the next thing we want to do is go ahead and initialize a new Git repository. So we'll go ahead and copy this, and we'll paste it in here, and that's going to go ahead and initialize a new Git repository. Now, the next thing we need to do is add this remote to our Git repository of our newly created Heroku app here. So we'll copy this command and we'll paste it in here, and that's going to go ahead and set the remote to our newly created project here on Heroku. So the next thing here we need to do is we need to go ahead and add all of our files to the repository. So we're going to go ahead and say git add all. So that'll go ahead and add them all. And then the next thing we need to do is commit them. So we'll run this git commit, and then we'll paste it in here, and we'll go ahead and change the commit message here to push to prod. All right, and that's going to go ahead and push all of our files to the repository. Now the last thing we need to do is go ahead and push this to Heroku. So we'll go ahead and paste this in here, and that's going to go ahead and deploy our app to Heroku. Okay, some time has passed, and as you can see now, our app has been successfully deployed. So if we go ahead and click on this button right here of Open App, we should be taken to our Active Tracker application here on Heroku. Alright, so that's going to go and wrap it up for this video here today. If you guys did enjoy, be sure to leave a like on it and let me know what you thought about it down below in the comments. Now, if you want to go ahead and catch more videos from myself, be sure to subscribe. The link is down below in the description. And once again, thank you to Brad for having me here on the channel. It's much appreciated. And I hope you guys all have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.